Bro, this story is cooked. Meet Li Fan, the underground emperor. The whole country moves because he snaps his fingers. But then, two random cultivator clowns drop out of the sky, throwing fire and purple lightning like they're speedrunning the apocalypse. And in one hit, his entire city gets deleted. Family gone. Fortune gone. This man clawed his way up from poor village nobody to the top of the food chain. 50 years of grinding, wiped like a bad save file. But then, what does this goat do? Cry? Beg the heavens? Nah. He smiles. He's fucking smile. The guy stands in the middle of the apocalypse, covered in dust and trauma, and just goes, bet? Because he's got a system that rewinds time. Hits reset like it owes him money. And this time, he's got a real goal. Hunt those cultivators down, cook every immortal wannabe alive, steal their secrets, and climb the ladder himself. To be the strongest cultivator alive, Li Fan isn't rebuilding. He's reloading. And now he's coming for everyone. Okay, bro, no more talking. Let's diving into the story. Li Fan was a super important guy. He was the Grand Tutor, which basically meant he was the top boss. One night, he sat in a giant fancy hall with a bunch of guests. Musicians played, people danced, and Li Fan sipped from a golden cup like a real big shot. He thought to himself that, for 50 years, he went from nothing to being the most powerful man in the world. Not bad, right? He remembered when he was young and super poor, just a nobody walking around in a little village. Now, he had it all. He thought life was awesome. Like, he couldn't ask for more. He already has everything. But then, bro, things got weird. A courtier ran over to him, bowing like crazy. The guy told Li Fan that there was fire falling from the sky. He said it had to be some kind of amazing sign. All the ladies at the party started freaking out and said the thing in the sky was coming toward Li Fan's house. Li Fan looked up, and his face turned super serious. Dude, he was not amused anymore. High over the city, two people were fighting in the sky. One looked like he was on fire with gold flames, and the other was glowing with purple energy. It was totally insane, like something out of a fantasy movie. Li Fan realized what was going on. He thought these guys looked like cultivators, and he could not believe it. So, was the cultivator indeed a real thing? Some guests started shouting about immortal masters and called it a lucky sign. But Li Fan looked terrified. He could not understand how this was happening. The scene went back to the sky. The purple guy, Dao Xuanzi, yelled at the gold guy, Ku Hong. Dao Xuanzi told Ko Hong to hand over a special cultivation method, or one of them was going to die tonight. Ku Hong was surrounded by fire and said he had been stuck at a weak stage for 100 years because he didn't have that method. He said he was about to die of old age soon, so there was no way he would give up something that might save his life. Dao Xuanzi said that the path to power was something everyone walked alone. He said even though there were lots of ways to get stronger, most people were stuck forever. Knowing a man in front of him has a method to make him strong, of course, he wouldn't miss it. He wanted that method, and he was not going to let Ko Hong escape. Hearing that bullshit, Ku Hong started laughing like a crazy dude. He said they were friends for 100 years, but now they were trying to kill each other just to stay alive. He knew he was probably going to lose, but he wanted to mess things up. He talked about the mortals below and wondered if Dao Xuanzi could handle the dangerous miasma if they kept fighting here. Dao Xuanzi pulled out a giant purple sword. He yelled at Ku Hong, but Ku Hong just charged at him, using his power like a giant dragon made of fire. Ku Hong said that if Dao Xuanzi could not handle the miasma, maybe he had a chance to survive. They clashed in midair. The sword and the dragon smashed into each other. Looking at that craziness in the sky, Li Fan couldn't do anything. Suddenly, a big explosion lit up the whole city, as if the world was ending. After that, Xuanjing City was just a burning pile of rubble. Buildings were smashed, everything was on fire, and people were thrown everywhere. Li Fan woke up in the middle of the disaster, hurt and coughing. He looked around for his family, but all he saw were dead bodies. His family and his guests were gone. The city was destroyed. It was a total nightmare. Everything is gone in 1 second. He thought that the city used to be super lively and full of life, but now it was just blood, fire, and ruined buildings. Almost everyone was dead, and all of it happened because of those two insane cultivators who decided to throw a fight over his city. Li Fan could not believe it. He even started laughing, not because he had lost everything and could not handle it, but because he had finally found a new purpose. Li Fan remembered that, for years, he had searched everywhere for proof that immortals or cultivators were real. He became a top official. traveled to the north, south, east, and west, but never found anything. By the time he gave up, he was already old. And now, out of nowhere, two of them dropped in and messed up his whole life. He thought fate was really messing with him. Then, he did something wild. He started glowing with blue energy, and weird symbols appeared around him. He yelled for the system. Yeah, this was his special treasure, a power he found in this world. It could turn real things into illusions and let him go back in time to a breakpoint. His breakpoint was the moment he turned 17, around the time when the big test to enter the palace happened. So basically, he could reset his life to 17 again. Li Fan actually already lived one life in this world before, and this was his second try. In his first life, he was just a regular dude. He wanted to pass the exams and become a super important person, but he always failed. He started a business, got married, had kids, and lived a normal life. When he was old and dying, he finally awakened his treasure, the system, which allowed him to restart everything and live his second life. He knew that this power was the reason he became so successful in this life. He could go back and start over anytime he wanted, as long as the system was charged. But he was not ready to restart yet. He still had stuff to do before leaving this life behind, not after finding his new purpose. Some time passed. Li Fan, still dressed as the Grand Tutor, was in a tent at a garrison camp. He wrote orders for his soldiers. He told them to go into the ruined city and keep order after the disaster. He also wanted his trusted soldiers to control the city, help rebuild things, and, most importantly, secretly look for those two insane cultivators who wrecked everything. Months went by. Xuanjing City was getting rebuilt, slowly but surely. Li Fan sat in a big hall, listening to a report. His subordinate told him that they still found nothing about the two cultivators. Li Fan looked totally defeated. He realized he should not have hoped for anything else. He thought it was time to give up on this life. He called out the system again, and his body filled with blue light and symbols. The system asked if he wanted to return to his breakpoint. Li Fan said yes. He sat cross-legged, glowing like a superhero, and his whole form started to shift. He turned young again, leaving behind his old body. He fell backward into a swirling vortex, ready to start over. In this new life, he will find those two cultivator bastards. For a quick moment, he saw all the important stuff he did in his second life, like a highlight reel in his head. The system told him how things went. It said that, after he returned to the beginning, he was so happy that he acted like a goofball, and his aunt almost made him drink some weird exorcism water from the local witch. Half a year later, Li Fan took a big test called the provincial exam. He didn't do amazing, but he still passed and became a jurin, which made his ancestors super proud. 2 years after that, he took even bigger exams and totally nailed them, becoming a jinshi. That was a big deal. Because he was so clever, he used his connections to get a job as a county magistrate in Wen County. He didn't stop there. In his third year, he started picking his own crew, loyal friends and subordinates. He even made explosives and matchlock rifles. Yes, this dude was making guns before everyone else. By year 5, there were some rebels attacking Prince Langya's house. Li Fan led his troops, saved the prince's family, and the prince was so grateful. Life was good. Then, year 6, Li Fan got promoted and married the vice minister's daughter. Next thing you know, he had a son. 10 years in, Princess Langya had a son too, and Li Fan went over to congratulate her. The years just kept rolling. When the emperor died, Prince Langya became the new emperor and gave Li Fan even more power and trust. He basically ran the country, bro. He kept moving up, year after year. He helped clear the empress's name in a witchcraft case, but she was still kept locked away. Someone snitched on Li Fan for visiting her, and then, out of nowhere, the emperor got assassinated. It was chaos. The empress was executed, but the crown prince took the throne and gave Li Fan even fancier titles. Now, Li Fan was like the boss of all bosses. He even had a son with the empress dowager. People started calling the Grand Tutor and saying he was more important than the emperor. 50 years later, 2 crazy cultivators showed up and wrecked everything. He barely escaped. So, that's all the second life recap. Back in the present, young Li Fan stood in his room, surrounded by fancy blue light and streams of numbers, like something out of a sci-fi movie. He started thinking about what was real and what was just in his head. Was it all a dream? A simulation? Who even knew at this point? Then, a big holographic menu popped up in front of him. The system gave him 4 choices. He could keep one thing from that last simulation, an item he owned, his cultivation skills, give someone else his memories, or skip all that to charge his system faster. Our boy thought about it. He realized that the safest bet was to make his magic system charge up faster. That way, it could protect him whenever he was in danger. Basically, the charge is the thing that's gonna protect him when he receives a fatal blow, and the thing that's gonna let him turn back time. He didn't want to gamble this time. The first and second options are only for the cultivator, so he skips. The third is also sketchy. Who would know what people are gonna do if they have their last life memories? Yeah, the last option is the best. The system showed his stats on another screen. Li Fan saw his name, his age, and his mental age. Dude, he was actually like 166 years old inside. He thought about how living so many lives made people kind of tired and messed up in the head. Too many memories could break your brain, but if you became strong enough, you could handle it. That's why he needs cultivation to increase his age and mental fortitude. His eyes were burning with excitement now. He wanted to learn the secret of cultivation from those two wild cultivators. He knew they would show up in 50 years. This time, he'd be ready for them. He thought maybe he could use stuff like guns, explosives, or even that weird miasma the cultivators talked about. But he couldn't just sit around for 50 years waiting. The two came from a place called the Ruinous Abyss in the east. So, Li Fan decided he would send people to check out that creepy abyss as soon as possible. He suddenly remembered something important. He thought the worst thing ever was having no goal. He remembered waking up in bed with the Empress Dowager, feeling empty and bored, even when he had everything. Power and pleasure? Boring after a while. Maybe if things kept repeating, he would have wanted to end his own life. But then those two cultivators showed up and changed everything. Suddenly, he saw a whole new world he wanted to explore. He got hyped again. Energy buzzed around his fists. He wanted to become a cultivator. He wanted to live forever. He swore that nobody could stop him, and he was looking forward to seeing Dao Xuanzi and Ku Hong again in 50 years. Years flew by. With his 2 lifetimes of experience, our protagonist crushed every challenge. This time, his essays were so awesome that he got first place in every single imperial exam. Everyone was talking about him. He still took the same job, but now, because he knew everything about the officials and the city, Wen County became his turf in no time. He started building his own powerful team, picking out the best people who had been loyal in his last life. He started doing secret, sneaky stuff. On a stormy night, he found a guy to act as a double for Prince Langya, made him super loyal, and then, when the time was right, arranged for his own guy to take out the real prince's family. The body double took the prince's place, and from then on, Li Fan pulled all the strings behind the scenes. He kept making power moves. By year 9, the body double Prince Langya married Princess Langya. On the wedding night, Li Fan himself showed up and, let's just say Princess Langya ended up having his baby. Fast forward a few years, the emperor got really sick, and when it was time, Li Fan rushed to the capital with his squad. The fake Prince Langya became emperor, and our boy stuffed the court with his own people. He got promoted again, making himself grand tutor and controlling the empire in the open. Under his rule, things ran even better than before. Time jumped ahead again. By year 35, Li Fan was old and powerful, standing on a balcony in his fancy robe. One of his masked agents knelt before him, reporting about the ruinous abyss. The fog over that place disappeared for half a day every 15 years, and they finally saw something cool down there. Using a telescope, they saw an upside-down world with mountains, glowing buildings, flying beasts, and even a city in the clouds. Crazy stuff, man. But everyone has a different image when looking at that place, so there must be some magic involved. Li Fan wanted to know if there was any way down to the bottom, but his agent said no way. Anyone who tried got destroyed by super strong astral wind. Even the best armor couldn't last a second. Our boy now was deep in thought. He realized he'd just have to be patient and wait for those two cultivators to show up. And then, boom! 50 years later, Xuanjing City was calm under the full moon, but suddenly, purple energy and orange fire exploded in the sky. Dao Xuanzi and Ku Hong were back, fighting just like last time. But this time, Li Fan was ready. From below, dozens of fiery projectiles shot up at the two cultivators. Ku Hong blocked with golden energy shields and shouted, wanting to know who dared attack him. He even caught a rifle out of the air, checking it out like he was looking at some weird gadget. To be honest, he thought it was kind of cool. He realized that these mortals actually made guns using machines and gunpowder instead of magic or energy. He called it a clever invention, but he also thought it was only useful because this place had no full power for cultivators. Anywhere else, he said, it would just be junk. Then he crushed the gun with his hand, tossing it aside into the burning remains of the projectiles. After that, Ku Hong decided he was done playing around. He said that mortals daring to attack cultivators must have a death wish. His eyes started to glow, and he got super pissed. He used a move called the Fire Dragon's Roar. He threw his hands forward, and, no joke, a giant golden dragon made of fire shot down at the city. It hit the ground and exploded, blowing up a huge part of Xuanjing. The place was on fire, buildings smashed, everything looked totally cooked. He then stared down at the city, expecting everyone to be toast. But then he noticed something that freaked him out. Tons of the soldiers were still alive. He couldn't believe it. He thought there was no way mortals could survive his fire dragon's roar. Right then, Dao Xuanzi showed up next to him. He was holding some of those bullets, but they were covered in a thick red liquid. He figured it out, these bullets were soaked in mortal blood, and after Ku Hong got hit by the immortal mortal miasma, his powers got a lot weaker. He also said they were ambushed the second they arrived, and the enemy even used that nasty miasma on them. He thought it was time to get out of there because the place was just too weird and dangerous. So, they tried to leave. But then, a crazy loud voice thundered from below. It was Li Fan, using some kind of loudspeaker. He called out their names and told them that if they ran away now, everyone in the cultivation world would find out they got the core formation method. Dude, both cultivators were totally shocked. Only they were supposed to know about that secret. How did Li Fan find out? Ku Hong demanded to know who was talking. But it got even crazier. Another round of cannonballs, this time covered in spooky red miasma, blasted into the sky. Dao Xuanzi shouted for Ku Hong to dodge, but it was too late, bro. All the cannonballs exploded in huge bloody bursts, slamming the two cultivators into the burning ruins below. Down in a massive crater, both of them were beaten badly. Li Fan's elite soldiers surrounded them, weapons ready and looking tough. One of the soldiers told them that Grand Tutor said they could live if they surrendered. Dao Xuanzi just knelt there, staring at the ground, thinking that surrender sounded like a joke. Ku Hong was dying fast. With his last strength, he forced a glowing storage ring off his finger and shoved it into Dao Xuanzi's hand, telling him to take it and go. Then, he died. A gigantic ghostly dragon roared up from his body, flew into the sky, and vanished. Ku Hong's body faded into light, and only a weird wooden branch was left for a second. Then it disappeared too. A voice from the sky explained what just happened. Ku Hong, a Foundation establishment cultivator, trained for over 200 years, used a super rare object called the Keely Dragon Branch. But here in the land of immortal extinction, he got jumped by thousands of mortals, destroyed by that miasma, and lost all his cultivation. Now he was dead, his Dao was gone, and everything was over. Back in the ruined city, Ku Hong was gone. Only a bloody patch on the ground showed where he died. Dao Xuanzi was beaten, surrounded by soldiers. One soldier told him again that Grand Tutor didn't want to kill him, and he could live if he gave up. Far away, on a rocky outcrop, Li Fan watched the whole thing. He thought that when Ku Hong died, he heard a weird voice from the sky. But honestly, he didn't care about that anymore. He realized hunting immortals wasn't going to work. The immortal mortal miasma was way stronger against cultivators than he expected. Down in the crater, Dao Xuanzi started talking, his voice all raspy but filled with hate. He said he didn't know who these people were or what they wanted, but he and Ku Hong had been tricked and destroyed, and there was nothing left to say. He glared with crazy blue eyes. He was furious. He said it was despicable to use mortals in that miasma, and that Ku Hong died for nothing. He then stood up. He told everyone to look at Ku Hong's special Dao item, and then he wanted to show off his own. He floated up, and a dark, scary energy swirled around him. Dao Xuanzi said his Dao foundation was called Dao Xuan. Suddenly, a huge ghostly sword the size of a mountain appeared in the sky, pointing straight down at the city. He yelled he had a sword and invited everyone to look at it. Then he slammed the sword down. A giant explosion of purple and white energy flashed out, engulfing everything in sight. Even Li Fan, standing far away, was swallowed up in the light. In that moment, our boy called out the system. Right after this, everything glitched out. The system told Li Fan this simulation was over. Li Fan, now a young dude again, sat up in his room, his chest pounding. Blue energy and glowing symbols faded around him. He was shocked. He realized that peak Foundation establishment cultivators like those guys were way too strong. If the immortal mortal miasma hadn't been so deadly to them, he figured he could reincarnate 100 times and still not beat them. He was surprised at how much Dao Xuanzi and Ku Hong really cared about each other. They called each other brother for 100 years, and it wasn't just words. Even at the end, When Ku Hong was dying, he gave Dao Xuanzi the core formation method, hoping his friend could survive. Dao Xuanzi, after seeing his friend die, lost it and chose to blow everyone up with his final move. Their friendship was on another level. Our protagonist remembered Dao Xuanzi, saying that the path to true power was a lonely road. Even if there were a lot of ways to get stronger, most people would never make it, and nobody could really share the journey. If even best bros like those two ended up like this, what would the rest of the cultivation world be like? Li Fan decided he wouldn't be scared. With his treasure, the system, and if he was careful, maybe nothing could stop him. He thought maybe next time, he could try to win one of the cultivators over instead of attacking both. He checked his new stats on the system. His mental age limit only went up a little. Counting all his lives, this was already his 5th shot. The path to immortality was getting way harder. The system showed his info. He was physically 20, mentally 216, and the system was charging up, but still only at 30%. Li Fan hoped the next 50 years would be worth it. Later, in year 35, Li Fan, now old again as Grand Tutor, stood at the edge of the ruinous abyss. The chasm was full of thick, weird fog, but, just as he'd learned from the last simulation, every 15 years, the fog lifted. He waited, watching as a huge wind blew the fog away like an upside-down waterfall. He looked through his telescope into the abyss, but the hell, what he saw was creepy, ruined buildings, total wreckage. And floating in the haze there were faint red letters that said, "The way to immortal is dead." Li Fan jerked back, freaked out and shaking. He thought, what the heck happened down there? What happened to the whole cultivation world? What do those words mean? Skip a couple of years, and it was already year 50, and the two cultivators come again, Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi, were floating way up in the sky, yelling at each other like old enemies at a family reunion. Ku Hong was done with Dao Xuanzi's nonsense and told him not to push his luck. But before Dao Xuanzi could even say a word, our boy Li Fan's soldiers started blasting up from the rooftops, shooting a whole miasma of bullets right at Ku Hong. Now, Li Fan wasn't just hiding in the back. He had his men shouting up at the sky, calling Ku Hong a brat, and pretending they were working for Dao Xuanzi. He made it sound like they'd been waiting all night, just to get Ku Hong for Master Dao Xuanzi. Bro, Ku Hong was not having it. He threw up a big golden shield and blocked all those bullets, but inside, he was freaking out. The soldiers' bullets were covered with immortal miasma. He called Dao Xuanzi out, saying, "Dude, you're rotten for using that stuff." But Dao Xuanzi was just as confused. He looked down at those soldiers and wondered what the hell was going on. Why were these mortals attacking Ku Hong and saying they were sent by him? And how did they even get their hands on immortal miasma? Dao Xuanzi shouted that none of this was his doing. But then Li Fan's voice, loud as thunder, started booming and accused him of making promises, telling everyone that if they helped kill Ku Hong and stole his core formation method, Dao Xuanzi would help them escape this rotten land. Ku Hong wasn't buying Dao Xuanzi's denial either. He said, "Look, besides you and me, who else even knows about this core formation trick?" Dao Xuanzi started to sweat, realizing whoever was speaking must know some serious secrets. Li Fan kept pushing, saying the mortals were in big trouble because of this miasma business, and if Dao Xuanzi didn't help them leave, his whole clan would probably get wiped out. Seeing all this, Ku Hong totally lost faith in his bro. Flames burst all over him, and he called Dao Xuanzi out for acting noble but playing dirty. He said, if he wanted the core formation method so badly, he could come and try to take it. Then he launched the wildest fire attack. Flame Dragon's Fury. Boom! Fire everywhere! Dao Xuanzi whipped out a huge purple sword and blocked it. The two of them started going at each other like maniacs in the sky. Down below, Li Fan didn't sit still. He told his soldiers to switch sides and help Ku Hong instead, saying Dao Xuanzi was too dangerous to let win. Ku Hong kept roasting Dao Xuanzi, saying people who do bad stuff always get their payback. He laughed at him for being so smart, but ending up all alone with his immortal followers against him. Then he revealed he'd learned a brand new Dao art and trapped Dao Xuanzi in a cage made of fire pillars. But Dao Xuanzi powered up hard and smashed his way out, yelling for the cage to break. Things just got crazier. The fight became harder. Meanwhile, Li Fan kept playing Puppet Master. He told Ku Hong they'd help, and his soldiers fired off another wave of those nasty miasma bullets. Dao Xuanzi got blasted, and then Ku Hong used his power, stabbing Dao Xuanzi right through the chest and sending roots bursting out of his body. Dude was in pure agony, screaming about the Chiu Dragon Branch, before the roots blew him apart in a storm of red light. A voice chimed in for a moment, talking about Dao Xuanzi's long life of cultivation, 212 years, now dead in the land of the immortal. His story just ended. Everything returned to the heavens. After that chaos, our MC Li Fan, now old and walking like a respectable grand tutor, showed up to talk with the exhausted, battered Ku Hong. He greeted Ku Hong real polite and begged for mercy, asking if he could let the 1,000 people in his clan live. But Ku Hong was kinda mad and asked why a mortal like him would even mess around in a cultivator fight. Li Fan played innocent, saying he was only trying to survive. He told him that if Ku Hong had lost, his own people would have been toast for sure. Ku Hong just laughed sadly at that, saying these days everyone was desperate just to live. He started talking about Dao Xuanzi, saying he'd trusted the guy for 100 years but didn't expect him to fall so low, even tricking mortals. He said there was no way out of this miserable land, and even immortals found it hard to escape, so how could mortals possibly leave? Li Fan freaked out and asked if he really didn't know a way out either. Ku Hong said, "Yep, that's right." Anyway, our protagonist realized this wasn't the best spot to chat, so he invited Ku Hong to a safer place. Later, underground, the two sat across a table. Li Fan pressed Ku Hong again, asking if it was truly impossible for mortals to get out. Ku Hong said, "Bro, why would he even lie about this? Maybe if someone were a golden core stage cultivator, they could carry a mortal through the barrier. But with his level? No way." Li Fan was pretty crushed, asking if there was really no hope for mortals to escape. Ku Hong explained, "To leave this land you had to break through the immortal extinction formation, and with a regular body, that was impossible. Plus, Li Fan was an old dude, so why was he so obsessed with leaving anyway? Wasn't being the local emperor good enough?" But our poor guy kept pushing, asking if maybe his descendants could become cultivators and leave. Ku Hong basically laughed in his face. He said, "Not only was there no spiritual energy here, so no one could cultivate, but mortals and immortals were totally different now. Mortals were covered in miasma, so even if the path to immortality was right in front of them, they could see it, but never touch it." He told Li Fan to give up on that dream. Li Fan fell silent. He was hurting inside, thinking that, wow, immortals and mortals really could never mix? There was truly no way. Ku Hong finished with a solid, "Nope, no way." In the end, Li Fan said if Ku Hong had nothing else to say, he'd leave. But as he turned, the old sly fox activated a hidden device in his sleeve and blasted Ku Hong with a thick red cloud of immortal miasma. Ku Hong was in total shock, screaming as the miasma burned him. Li Fan just looked back with a cold face, thinking to himself that if immortals and mortals couldn't exist together, then how could a mortal ever really trust a word from a so-called immortal? Damn, our MC played it cold. But can you blame him? In a world like this, trust is for fools. After that, our boy kept thinking about everything Ku Hong told him. It was some deep stuff, bro. So here's the deal. Ages ago, there was a massive change in the immortal world. Mortals got hit with some nasty plague, and at first, cultivators thought, not my problem. But when one of them caught it, things got ugly real fast. Turns out, the plague spread through the same spiritual energy cultivators needed to survive. So, basically, the one thing keeping them alive was also killing them now. When cultivators got infected, best case, they lost all their powers and dropped in rank. Worst case, they lost everything and just died. And these guys? They got mad. So mad, they started blaming mortals for everything and went on a rampage, hunting them down. But that plan totally backfired. The more mortals they killed, the crazier the plague got. It spread everywhere, even faster, making things 100 times worse. But cultivators weren't about to just die off without a fight. Some started working on cures and ways to resist. Others came up with this big, great migration plan. Kick out all the mortals, ship them off to some dead-end worlds using flying boats and magic shuttles, then lock those places up forever. But it didn't work out the way they hoped. Over time, new mortals kept popping up, even from cultivator families, and inside every one of them was this shadow of the plague. This thing was so toxic to immortals that, if a mortal wanted to cultivate, they had to clean themselves up first. People started calling it the immortal mortal miasma. It pretty much split the whole world into two teams, immortals and mortals. No mixing allowed. Back in the present, our MC was staring at a scroll, reading about how this place he was stuck in was basically the border between the two worlds, a forbidden land for cultivators. He was getting stressed, bro. He thought, what are the odds he'd meet cultivators in this wasteland again? His own life was near the end, 70 years old already, and even with all his do-overs, his max was 86. 16 years left? He wasn't betting on seeing another immortal again. He started to panic. Was he really going to spend eternity just looping through boring mortal lives? Nearly 300 years of struggle, and the guy still couldn't accept it. He refused to believe there was no way out. Then he got hit with a new idea. How did those mortals in the original Great Migration even get sent here? Maybe the answer was there. Cut to the underground room. Ku Hong was still chained up, looking like he'd been through hell, while Li Fan stood over him, not in the mood for games. Ku Hong just laughed, asking if Li Fan was really still clinging to hope. The dude was 70. Did he really think he could start cultivating now? Our MC snapped back, saying maybe if Ku Hong helped him find a way out, he'd bring him along to the immortal worlds. Ku Hong just called him a tricky snake and said he wasn't falling for it. But Li Fan insisted, even if he was lying, at least it was something to hope for. He asked if Ku Hong really wanted to rot away in this dead end, or if he'd rather try for a shot at real life. After a pause, Ku Hong admitted that, back in the day, mortals were shipped around using flying magic tools, boats and shuttles and stuff. That was when the immortal world was packed and lively, but after everything went downhill, those magic rides basically disappeared. Li Fan wanted to know if the huge disaster Ku Hong mentioned was just the plague, but he explained that the immortal mortal miasma alone wasn't enough to wreck the whole world. The real reason things went bad was all because the immortal method cannot be cultivated together. In ancient times, everyone learned together, trained together, sparred together, straight up chill vibes. But then one day, everyone realized their training was slowing down every time someone else practiced the same method. They could see a number of people using the same method. Suddenly, everyone was enemies, because if you trained the same way as someone else, you were basically blocking their path to power. It turned into a giant battle royale. Even people hiding out in the woods got found, because cultivators could sense anyone using the same method. So how did people train nowadays? Li Fan wanted to know, and Ku Hong broke it down. There were two main groups you could join. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance, where you did missions and traded stuff for points to buy new methods, and the 5 Elders Association, where you signed your soul away for a while, serving the 5 Elders in exchange for a shot at power. Li Fan thought this sounded like methods were easy to get, but Ku Hong said nope, they were all junk, just fragments. You could only go so far before you hit a wall, and had to switch methods and basically start over. But there was one cheat code. Everyone learned a special secret art called the Supreme Primal True Scripture. It wasn't a real cultivation method, more like a life hack that let you ditch your old powers and start a new method without losing all your progress. Pretty wild, right? Li Fan was shocked something like that even existed. He realized the timing of this miracle art showing up was way too perfect, like someone was pulling strings to make sure everyone accepted the new rules. He sighed, saying the path was too hard. The real kicker? Dao Xuanzi had died because of chasing a core formation method, but what he didn't know was that Ku Hong had run off with a true art that could take someone straight to the nascent soul realm. Basically, the big leagues. Li Fan almost flipped when he heard that. A real nascent soul true art? That was priceless. Ku Hong kept dropping knowledge about how, when a cultivator died, the world voice announced it with big signs in the sky. But then he also heard rumors that, across thousands of years, some mortals from these dead zones had actually made it back to the immortal world. Just hearsay. But maybe there was something to it. Li Fan was like, hey, sometimes rumors are just facts with bad PR. If there was even a tiny chance he wasn't giving up. Ku Hong shook his head, wondering why an old guy like Li Fan was still fighting so hard. Li Fan made a deal. If Ku Hong helped him find a way back, he'd not only let Ku Hong die, but return all his stuff, plus Dao Xuanzi's, and even hand over that nascent soul true art. Ku Hong got super hyped. He asked if Li Fan was for real. RMC said of course, and just like that, they were in business. The two of them started hitting the books, searching every dusty scroll and record for clues about the Great Migration. Li Fan even sent the army to start digging up ancient tombs, but the officials freaked out and sent complaints every day. Yet, Li Fan told them to deal with it. He didn't care what anyone thought. The problem was, there was just too much history gone missing, and his body was running out of time. Flash forward 16 years, Li Fan looked too old, barely more than a skeleton, hobbling into the secret room on his cane. He was on his last breath, but before he died he wanted to check what exactly was inside his storage ring. He slipped it on, blue energy swirling, and out popped a scroll. It was a nascent soul-level cultivation method, with 0 cultivators for it right now. Yeah, this is the method that Ku Hong had. Li Fan just stared at it. thinking how wild it was to have this huge pile of treasure but not be able to use any of it. He was still just a mortal and can't use it. Next, he pulled out Dao Xuanzi's rusted sword. Supposedly, once a cultivator died, their magic items lost their power, so this sword should have been a dud. But wait, Li Fan's eyes went wide, because suddenly a system message popped up right on the sword's hilt. The system said, "Hey, this sword can actually be charged. Did he want to go for it? Yes or no?" Dude, this old man almost died now. But how stupid is he to just check the loot now? Everyone knows you should check the loot right after the battle. Anyway, back to Li Fan. Honestly, he barely had any strength left, but when the system asked if he wanted to charge up that rusty Dao Xuanzi sword, he gave it a yes. No hesitation. Instantly, the sword just glitched out and turned into pure light, getting sucked straight into the system. The system told him that his anchor charge progress was now at 1%, and he had one anchor point ready to go. Our MC was thinking hard, remembering what the system explained. If he got the anchor charge up to 100%, he could unlock a second anchor point. That would mean he could start over from different points in time, not just the same 17-year-old. Whenever he reset his life, that sounded pretty epic, bro. Maybe he could skip a boring life and start when he already becomes a grand tutor. And if only he could ever escape this boring mortal wasteland, there'd be a ton of magical loot out there. All he needed was to break free and start grinding for real treasures. And now, he figured it was time to end this round and called out to the system, ready for the next simulation. Suddenly, everything went blue and blurry. Our MC was floating in some kind of void, and the system menu popped up, telling him the simulation was over. It said he could keep one thing, either an item, his cultivation level, someone else's memory, or he could give up everything for a faster system charge. Our boy didn't even blink. He picked to keep one item. All of his stuff appeared in front of him. The busted sword, the storage ring, spirit stones, and a super fancy cultivation scroll. But of course, the system was stingy as always. He couldn't keep the whole of it, just one thing. So, he grabbed the nascent soul method scroll, figuring that was the real jackpot. The scroll glowed like crazy, and just like that, Li Fan got pulled back to his starting point, young again, in his room. The system updated his stats, showing his name, age, mental age, which was getting pretty insane now. And the fact that the scroll was now bound to his system forever, our protagonist was hyped. Now that the cultivation method was locked in, he saw 100 new ways to scheme. He remembered how last time, when he dug up tombs all over the empire, it nearly caused a riot at court and people freaked out. The plan was too wild, too fast. So, he started plotting. If he was more patient and started working on people's minds early, maybe in 20 years, he could make tomb hunting totally normal. And then, time went on. His sixth life was rolling. Li Fan started moving pieces behind the scenes, changing the world little by little. In year 5, a new group called the Antiquarian School showed up with a bunch of super old books. They took them to the capital and blew everyone's minds. The texts were masterpieces, never seen before. It's full of bragging about how ancient knowledge would answer any question. In year 6, the emperor got deathly sick, but the Antiquarian School handed over a secret pill. Boom. Emperor went from dying to doing jumping jacks in days. People started to believe these ancient secrets could really save lives. By year 11, there was a crazy tomb robbing case. Over 100 people got caught. The local big shot didn't know what to do, so he sent word to Xuanjing for the emperor's decision. The answer took a whole month, but instead of death, the tomb raiders just got sent to work in the capital. Tomb hunting was getting popular, and nobody wanted to slow it down. Year 15, the emperor was dying again. Dude just couldn't catch a break and wanted another immortal pill. He sent more than 100,000 soldiers to dig up tombs everywhere. Still no luck, and the emperor croaked anyway. But now the whole country was obsessed with finding anything ancient. The throne went to Prince Langya, but honestly, our MC Li Fan was the one pulling all the strings from the shadows. By year 23, tombs were being opened left and right, and historians finally pieced together the name of the OG dynasty, the Qi dynasty. Li Fan posted a huge reward. Anyone who found a Qi dynasty tomb would become a marquis. Talk about motivation. Fast forward to year 25, and guess what? Someone finally found the tomb of the Qi dynasty's first emperor, Yi Xing. Li Fan, now middle-aged, with the classic mustache and goatee, headed out with his squad. The tomb was wild. The main hallway stretched forever, covered in super old murals that looked brand new. Inside the main chamber, the ceiling was covered in glowing pearls, making it look like you were standing under the night sky. There were fake mountains poking out of a sea of clouds, and nobody could figure out how this cloud sea just stayed put for thousands of years. That was some immortal level tech, for sure. On the highest fake mountain was a tiny old hut. The fields around it were overgrown, but as they got close, they realized the roof was made from golden threads. Li Fan told 2 guards to open the door. Inside, instead of a fancy coffin, there was just a plain memorial tablet, which read, "Tomb of Tai Hong Sect Outer Disciple Yi Xing." Our hero was a little disappointed. The guy wasn't even a real immortal, just an outsider from the Tai Hang sect, probably sent here to manage the mortal migration back in the day. He thought, if Ku Hong was right, all these sects got wiped out ages ago, so Yi Xing must have been the last one holding things together. He wondered if they'd ever find the flying boat used for the big migration. A few days later, after searching the main tomb, Li Fan was in his study when a nervy subordinate rushed in and said they found a record mentioning a flying boat in a nearby tomb. But of course, the place had been robbed ages ago, and anything useful was long gone. Bro, our MC was pissed. He smashed his desk in a total rage. He couldn't believe it. Every time he got close, it slipped through his fingers like some kind of cruel joke. But he wasn't giving up. He doubled the reward. Anyone who found a clue about the immortal boat would be made a marquis. No questions asked. 10 years later, Li Fan was old and powerful again, sitting up high while his underlings reported in. This time, something big happened. A group tried to dig up a random grave but got wrecked by some mysterious power. Even the best experts couldn't even scratch the place. Li Fan ordered them to bring out the immortal mortal miasma, crack the tomb open, and be ready to tell him as soon as possible if they found anything that looked like a flying boat. When they finally got inside, one of his guys ran up, losing his mind, and said there was something that looked just like a flying boat inside. Our MC stormed in, and there it was. A small wooden boat, simple and plain, sitting right there among the burial goods. Li Fan couldn't believe it. Was this really it? Had he finally found the legendary flying boat? Bro, what I could see was just a toy boat, lol. Anyway, our boy had been after this flying boat forever, and now, finally, it was sitting right in front of him. But that wasn't even the craziest part. Right next to the boat, he spotted a message carved into the wall by the tomb owner before he died, and it laid everything out. Suddenly, in Li Fan's mind, the story started playing out like a movie. Turns out, the tomb guy was called Qian Hong, a Foundation establishment cultivator from over 3,000 years ago. Dude had gotten chased by some nasty enemies and, with nowhere else to go, ducked into the land of immortal extinction. But this place was a complete dead zone for cultivators. No spiritual energy, just a few spirit stones to keep him going. Those ran out fast, and Qian Hong's powers faded away day by day. So he started searching everywhere, guessing that back when all those mortals got dumped in this wasteland, maybe a flying boat or two got left behind. He spent decades hunting, until he finally stumbled on the epic tomb of Yi Xing. Inside, he really did find a flying boat. But bro, the power core was totally busted. Qian Hong didn't know anything about fixing magic stuff, so he could only stare at it and give up on ever escaping this dump. The guy was crushed, and that's how he ended up stuck here for good. Back to the present, Li Fan checked out Qian Hong's last words, carved right on the wall. It said, if some future cultivator found the tomb, Qian Hong wanted his bones sent back to the cultivation world, and the stuff in the tomb was their reward. Our boy thought, with all those crazy defenses outside, no wonder Qian Hong was sure only a cultivator would show up someday. Now, Li Fan was ready to see what kind of loot he'd left behind. On the floor, there was a stone tablet and 2 scrolls. Suddenly the system chimed in, calling the stone tablet a halting stella fragment, some mystical object of heaven and earth. But Li Fan could only sigh. He'd blasted the tomb open using so much immortal mortal miasma that the tablet's power fizzled out. Now it was just a boring old rock. Typical Li Fan luck, honestly. Then he looked at the scrolls, and the system flashed up their names. One was called Lesser Huanzhen Art, for Qi, refining stage, and the other was Cloud Water Record, for foundation establishment stage. Weird thing though, the system said there was already one person cultivating each. Li Fan was like, what the hell? Was this some sort of trap? But after 3,000 years, it was impossible anyone could still be alive from back then, not even the strongest immortals. He guessed that maybe these cultivation manuals had been added to some big archive after the Great Calamity, and over the years, all sorts of people had taken turns practicing them. Honestly, the whole thing seemed sketchy. But never mind that. He finally picked up the Tai Hong boat. The system announced it loud and clear. This was the special tool the Tai Hong sect used to move mortals around, though its core was busted. Still, after chasing this thing for so many years, Li Fan felt like he'd finally hit the jackpot. Sure, he couldn't fix it, and neither could Qian Hong, but maybe, just maybe, he could find someone who could. Suddenly, time skip. 15 years later, it was year 50, and it was deja vu all over again. Up in the night sky above Xuanjing, Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were back at it, shouting at each other and about to throw down. Just like in every other timeline, Ko Hong was yelling for Dao Xuanzi not to push him, while Dao Xuanzi demanded the cultivation method or else. But right then, our boy just blasted their argument from down below. He told them it was just a cultivation manual, and was it really worth dying over? Both the immortals freaked out for a second, wondering who had the guts to jump into their business. Li Fan told them to come down for a proper chat, and believe it or not, they actually did. Now, all three were chilling at Li Fan's manor, drinking together like some kind of weird family reunion. Li Fan gave them this whole story about how his ancestor predicted on his deathbed that two people would appear from the ruinous abyss one day, and that would be the chance for his clan to finally escape this dump. He played it up big, saying his clan had been waiting thousands of years, and now the prophecy was finally coming true. Time to celebrate. Ko Hong asked for Li Fan's name, so he introduced himself politely, real smooth. Dao Xuanzi wanted to know more about this opportunity to escape, and Li Fan started dropping ancient sect names. He mentioned the Taiyan sect, the masters of prophecy and calculation. Ku Hong got excited, saying that sect was legendary for its divination skills. So Li Fan just kept spinning the story. His ancestor was good at divination, didn't like real cultivation, and when heaven and earth changed, he volunteered to help the mortals migrate. That's why the family ended up stuck here. Dao Xuanzi was starting to buy it, and asked why Li Fan stopped their fight. Li Fan told them, as soon as he saw the two of them, he knew the prophecy was coming true, and he had to keep them from killing each other. Dao Xuanzi explained that cultivation methods were so rare outside, it was normal for friends to want to murder each other over one. Li Fan put on his sad face, acting all disappointed, then hinted that his ancestor left behind an epic method, one that led straight to the Golden Core realm. Ko Hong lost it. Dude was so hyped, he said if Dao Xuanzi got that method, there'd be no reason to fight anymore. Dao Xuanzi asked what Li Fan wanted in return. Li Fan said his ancestor's last wish was to get back to the Tai Hong sect. Other than the method, he'd also left behind the Tai Hong boat, but it was broken. Supposedly, two future cultivators, one a sword guy, the other an artifact nerd, would someday appear and help fix the boat, letting his descendants finally escape. Li Fan winked, basically saying, "Hey, that's you two." Dao Xuanzi was impressed by how on point the prophecy was. He admitted Ko Hong was obsessed with artifact refining while he was the sword master, so this all matched perfectly. Li Fan played it cool and invited them to come check out the goods. But right as they were about to leave, Dao Xuanzi got all greedy and said his friend already had a cultivation method. So why the fuck did he want to see the new method? Scared, Ko Hong just said he didn't want to go. Dao Xuanzi just rolled his eyes and followed Li Fan alone. In the treasure storage room, Li Fan was acting careful. He kept some red immortal mortal miasma floating around, letting Dao Xuanzi know he wasn't messing around. Dao Xuanzi freaked, recognizing the deadly stuff. Li Fan claimed it was just for protecting the family's heirlooms, then showed off the glowing scroll. The system announced the big prize, the 1,000 Mechanisms Jade Cosmos Treasured Tome, a nascent soul-level cultivation method, and nobody was using it yet. Dao Xuanzi just stared at it, stunned that Li Fan was actually telling the truth. Li Fan explained that back when Ku Hong was around, he'd only said it was a core formation method, since he didn't trust that guy not to do something crazy. Dao Xuanzi respected the move and swore he'd get Ko Hong to help with the boat repair. Li Fan laughed it off, saying sure, after everything was done, he'd hand over the method for real. Later that night, Dao Xuanzi went to talk to Ku Hong, telling him that the method was real and he'd seen it with his own eyes. Ko Hong got this dark, greedy look, thinking that Li Fan was just a mortal, and they could always steal the method by force. Yeah, our MC might have set up a deal, but you could already tell these immortal bros weren't planning to play fair. Man, Li Fan's life was never boring. Thank God Dao Xuanzi wasn't buying it. He told himself that yeah, Li Fan was a mortal, but he was also a descendant of the Taiyan sect, and nobody wanted to mess with those weirdos and their prophecy magic. He figured it was better to just help fix the boat and avoid getting his face melted by some secret trap. Plus, if they got the method by force and Li Fan revealed it was actually a nascent soul-level treasure, not some core formation, he would be in deep trouble. He doesn't want to fight Ku Hong again. Next day, Li Fan strolled in like a boss and handed the Tai Hong boat over for repairs. Ku Hong was absolutely geeking out over the thing, saying the refining and formation skills were way beyond anything he'd ever seen. The guy actually said his Tao of artifact refining would break new ground just messing with this boat. Here's the thing about cultivation. You blink, and a year flies by. Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi worked on that boat for almost an entire year. Finally, one day Li Fan rushed over. Guess what? The boat was glowing and ready to go. Ku Hong gave Li Fan the rundown. The boat's main power, its transformation, and its dust-cleansing systems were all fixed and running smooth. Defensive and offensive spells? Well, those got a patch job. Could handle the trip out, but you might not want to get in a fight with another cultivator. Li Fan didn't even care. As long as this baby could get him out of the immortal extinction great formation, he'd figure out the rest later. Ku Hong explained that the boat ran on spiritual energy, and you needed to control it with divine sense. 3 sizes, small like a bus, medium like a cruise ship, and maxed out an entire city, bro. They didn't have a lot of spirit stones for fuel, but it'd be enough to get Li Fan out in the medium size. Ku Hong wondered if Li Fan needed a cultivator to drive it, since mortals can't even use divine sense. But Li Fan was done playing it low-key. He straight up jumped onto a balcony and leapt off. The Tai Hang boat popped out of nowhere, and our boy landed right on the deck as it soared through the air, looking like an absolute legend. Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi practically tripped over themselves, amazed that a mortal could pilot this thing. Li Fan just laughed and said it was nothing, and that he owed it all to them for helping him finally see hope after 1,000 years stuck in this dump. Dao Xuanzi started to ask about the method they'd been promised, but Li Fan said it was ready and told them to come pick it up. Fast forward 3 days, Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi were back, cultivation method in hand, ready to bounce. Dao Xuanzi explained they didn't have many spirit stones left, and if they hung around this wasteland any longer, their powers would drain away. Ku Hong offered Li Fan a map he'd drawn from memory, since there weren't any fancy immortal USB sticks out here, showing the area near the exit. After a bit more chit-chat, the 2 immortals shot off into the sky, turning into streaks of light and leaving our boy alone at the manor. As they flew, Ku Hong admitted Li Fan was pretty awesome, but he felt bad the guy didn't have much time left. Even if Li Fan made it home, his lifespan was almost up. Rough life, right? Dao Xuanzi said it was the whole reason cultivators fought and backstabbed each other, to chase after long life. Ku Hong brought up the method Li Fan gave them, just checking it wasn't a repeat or a fake, but Dao Xuanzi promised once he hit golden core, he'd pay his friend back, no problem. Then they started daring each other to blast through the fog, like a couple of maniacs. Meanwhile, Li Fan had his own plans. The dude climbed aboard the Tai Hong boat, determined to charge through the ruinous abyss and figure out what secrets lay beyond. He knew the fog only cleared every 14 years, but he was already super old, 71. By the time the fog opened again, he'd be pushing 85 and probably dead. He figured, screw it, why wait? He fired up the boat and dove straight into the thick white mist. At first, it was all spooky and unreal, just endless white in every direction. Then, the boat started shaking like crazy. Li Fan realized this was that astral wind layer Ku Hong talked about. The kind of place that would turn a regular person into ground beef in seconds. He was super lucky the boat's defenses held. After half an hour of pure stress, the shaking stopped. Suddenly, Li Fan was surrounded by this wild golden light. And then, bro, he got hit by the most insane vision ever. He saw himself getting a golden core, becoming an immortal emperor, breaking into the god realm, working his way up to God King, and then finally making it to the primeval god realm. But even there, he was just a low-level gatekeeper, starting all over from the bottom. Dude couldn't catch a break. Next thing, Li Fan snapped out of it, gasping for air. The boat was flying upwards, totally out of his control. He realized he'd just had his brain scrambled by some kind of illusory light layer, and the boat had autopiloted him to the next part, the inversion layer. He figured if he let the Tai Hang boat drive, he'd be fine, so he just kept pouring in power while the boat navigated the death traps. The boat zipped through the flowing fire layer, all burning hot, profound ice layer, so cold it could freeze your soul, thunderstorm layer, lightning city, and finally the darkness layer. Each one was supposed to be super dangerous, but the boat just glided past, dodging every threat like it was built for this. Finally, Li Fan reached the last layer, the darkness layer. All he had to do was pass through and he'd be free. He was ready to celebrate, but then out of nowhere, the darkness split open into a giant gaping mouth full of teeth, and that giant ate his boat in one bite. Li Fan yelled for the system, but the system cut him off. It couldn't protect him even with charging. And now? Simulation over? Bro. Li Fan jolted awake, drenched in sweat. He couldn't believe it. When Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi crossed the formation, they didn't see any nightmare monster in the darkness layer. So why did he? Was this some special trap that only triggered for mortals? He checked his stats. Still stuck at mortal. Age 20, even though his mind felt like it was 300. Anchor charge inching up. Tai Hong boat still bound to his system. But hey, a new life meant new chances. Our boy locked in the Tai Hong boat and jumped right into life number 7. 4 years in, he went back to Qian Hong's tomb, using immortal mortal miasma to soften up the defenses. This time, he carefully drained power from the halting stele fragment and got a fat boost to his anchor charge, now up to 26%. All he had to do was repeat this a few times, and he'd unlock a second anchor point for even more crazy resets. The rest of the loot in the tomb? Totally useless to him now. He just sealed everything back up and left. But Li Fan couldn't resist the call of the abyss. A year later, he stood at the edge of the eastern ruinous abyss again, staring into the fog. He told himself he'd just take a peek, nothing risky. He knew his system was not charged up yet to be able to turn him back to the past. If he died right now, everything is gone, he would really be dead. But at the same time, the urge to gamble it all was strong. Why wait 15 years? He thought, when he could try his luck now? If he was careful and avoided that freaky mouth monster, maybe he could finally break through. Anyway, when he almost lost his mind and jumped, the pathway opened, and he saw the scary, bloody message again. The immortal path was dead. Looking at that, our boy was sweating bullets. He started freaking out a little, because just now, he had felt a ton of voices whispering in his head, basically begging him to dive straight into the abyss. If it hadn't been for those words, he would have just gone full crazy and walked right off the edge. Thank God, bro. Or the story would end here. Because let's be real, this path to the immortal world was way too hard. Fast forward 15 years, our MC's new life was cruising along, and he was back with the fancy Tai Hong boat, zipping through the thunder and lightning like he owned the place. No real danger, just a lot of loud noises. He stopped right above the darkness layer, the place where things always went sideways. Some green specks of light floated up from the blackness below. Li Fan used them like a fancy flashlight, trying to spot that monster. But, of course, nothing showed up. The moment the light started fading, our guy decided to go for it, cranking the boat to full speed and shooting straight down. Guess what? Right on cue, the monster showed up, the same giant mouth, teeth everywhere, ready to chomp him. Li Fan realized that this creature really hated mortals. Maybe that's why no regular humans ever made it out alive. Our hero gripped the controls, yelled up and onward in his head, and swerved the boat back to the previous layer just in time. The monster couldn't follow him past the thunderstorm clouds. Apparently, that was the safe zone. He got a good look at the beast for the first time. A whale the size of a city, with just one glowing, creepy cyan eye staring him down. Li Fan thought, what the hell is that thing? That whale was so massive, and yet it always managed to find his tiny boat every single time. Thank God he had the system, so he could try as many times as he wanted, so he decided to keep rolling the dice. So, for the next 15 years, our MC did nothing but smash his head against this problem. He kept trying, over and over, to outmaneuver the whale. But the beast got faster, like it was learning every time. Li Fan could only dodge for a bit before chickening out and retreating. Time went by. Now he was at anchor year 35. Another shot at the abyss? Another chance to go full throttle. He waited until the day the white fog disappeared, because that was the only time when the whale seemed a bit slower to react. He figured that if he went fast enough, maybe he could make it before the monster noticed. He shot down, the illusion of another land getting closer and closer, but then, yup, the whale's terrifying cry echoed and it came after him again. Not enough time, bro. Li Fan called on his system and boom. The simulation ended right there. In system space, our guy didn't waste time. He just told the system to forget all the fancy options and just charge up faster. He noticed that his mental age limit wasn't going up anymore, he was just stuck at max. But hey, he still had almost 750 years to burn. That's a lot of chances to die in style. New life, new him. On his 8th round, at only 4 years in, he cracked open Qian Hong's tomb again. He sucked more power from the halting stele fragment, and the system told him he'd now charged up to a juicy 51%. Not bad at all. A year later, the fog over the abyss cleared. The system's charge was pushing 90%, but not quite there yet. For Li Fan, unless he hit 100%, it meant nothing. He just had to keep waiting. Over the years, he tried again and again, year 20, year 35, failing every time. But at least he was getting pretty slick at piloting that Taihang boat. Practice makes perfect, even when you're dying every few decades. By year 50, our MC was an old man with a beard so long he could probably trip over it. He knew his reflexes were shot, so instead of risking another suicide run, he decided to look for hints. He went to meet his two old friends. You know, the ones who blow up cities for fun, Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong. They were already fighting in the sky, throwing around purple lightning and golden fire like total maniacs. Our boy actually felt a little nostalgic, hearing their usual arguments. Back at his fancy manor, he used the old trick, baiting the cultivators with a rare cultivation method so he could get them to show up for dinner. After a few drinks, he showed them a painting of the giant whale and asked if they'd ever seen something like that. Ku Hong nearly spat out his drink, insisting he'd never seen such a beast in the abyss. Dao Xuanzi looked thoughtful and said he'd read about it in ancient records. Apparently, there used to be a beast-taming sect that controlled freaky monsters instead of practicing normal cultivation. This giant whale was supposed to be one of their pets. Ko Hong then remembered the name, the realm-splitting whale. Li Fan leaned in, asking if they knew how to avoid it. Dao Xuanzi just shrugged, saying the beast had vanished from the world ages ago and no one knew how it worked. Our MC realized he'd have to figure this out himself. These two immortals were so useless, bro. After giving out the fake cultivation method and sending the other two away, our boy closed his eyes and let that life end. Time for the next round. Life 9. He went straight for the tomb, but this time the system didn't react at all. No more free charges. Tough luck. Back at the abyss, he tried the usual routine at anchor years 20, 35, and 50. Still no luck. When he finally hit 85, our hero was basically dust, too old for any more crazy tricks. He gave up control of the ship and just let it float down. Hands off, through all the deadly layers he'd mastered dodging so many times before. Astral wind, illusory light, inversion, flowing fire, profound ice, thunderstorm, and finally, the darkness layer. Inside the boat, the old man waited and watched, expecting the whale to show up and ruin his day again. But this time, nothing. No giant beast came for him. The boat kept going, and suddenly a golden light appeared below, like a doorway out. Li Fan realized this was his moment. He slammed the accelerator, the boat blazing toward the exit. And just then, the whale finally noticed and dove at him from above. He was shocked, but then it hit him. Bro, this monster couldn't see anything moving at a steady pace. As long as he didn't speed up or slow down, he was invisible to the beast. He started laughing like a total maniac. He had finally cracked the code. The final shackle holding him prisoner in this dead-end world was broken by him, and only him. The Taihang boat shot through the golden fissure, barely dodging the whale's bite, and escaped out into the unknown. The scenery outside turned unreal, all cosmic colors and swirling energy. The pressure was insane, making blood pour from his nose and eyes, but Li Fan didn't care. He was free. He looked back at the place he'd spent all those lives trapped in, but what he saw made his skin crawl. There weren't just one or two of those realm-splitting whales out there. There were hundreds, no, thousands, maybe even more. Each one was hollowing out a chunk of darkness in the glowing void of space. The land of immortal extinction, that old prison of a world, was drifting farther and farther away, lost among these monsters. Bro, our boy did it. He broke free. Those whales were so creepy I can't handle it. Now, after Li Fan finally broke through the ruinous abyss, then saw the real cultivation world with his own two eyes, he basically thought, well, dying right after that was totally worth it. Honestly, respect. Dude shed a tear and called it a win. The system popped up, telling him that simulation was over. New life started, the whole reset magic, blue light everywhere, Li Fan back to being a young dude. Our MC checked out his prize menu and straight up froze because he noticed something big. The halting stele fragment from last time was on the list. He was all, what the hell, how could I bring this broken thing with me? After thinking it over, he decided to grab the fragment and see if his wild guess was right. New life, new plan. Flash forward. Year 3. Our boy was already out at Qian Hong's tomb. but instead of blowing it open with miasma, he just took out the halting stele fragment he'd brought from the last round and waved it around. This was where things got interesting. The two stele fragments, one from the previous simulation, one inside the tomb, basically recognized each other and started to merge. Bro, it was like bringing two copies of a legendary Pokemon into the same game. The stele from Li Fan's inventory started to melt away, while the one in the tomb powered up like crazy. Our protagonist was grinning. He'd just confirmed that mystical artifacts wanted to be one of a kind, no fakes allowed. After that, he ordered his guys to blast the tomb open with immortal mortal miasma, the old school way. It took a while, but finally, Li Fan walked in and checked out the upgraded stele fragment. Still a little broken, but clearly stronger and shinier than before. He tried to see if the system could eat it up, but nope. He'd have to fix it up more before it would speed up for the system's recharge. So he just packed the new, improved stele into his tie-hang boat, saving it for the big trip ahead. Time skip, anchor year 20. Li Fan was older now, and the system finally recharged. This time, he basically went full tyrant mode, cleaning out all the corrupt officials and greedy landlords, snatching up every scrap of gold and silver he could find. Bro was stacking treasure like a dragon, and he wasn't shy about it. Why? Because once he got to the cultivation world, he'd need something to spend. He even tried to grab as much grain as he could, but, you know, grain is life for the country. He couldn't just empty the silos. Of course, all the useless officials started whining, but Li Fan had a solution. He flexed his power by making his tie-hang boat grow to epic size, floating it right above the imperial palace. People lost their minds. The regular folk dropped to their knees. The officials suddenly turned into his biggest fans, and everyone helped him finish loading the boat until it was packed to the brim. So, he became their god or what? With his loot and food sorted, it was finally go time. He jumped on the Tai-Hong boat and soared back to the ruinous abyss. This time, he kept his cool, set the boat to autopilot at a steady speed. No more wild stunts. He knew the trick now. The trip through the void felt like forever, even though it only took a few hours in real time. Eventually, he broke through the barrier and bam, landed in the cultivation world. But, of course, nothing ever goes exactly as planned. Instead of some magical land with mountains and palaces like in his last life, our dude popped out right over a never-ending blue ocean. He pulled out his map, the one from Ku Hong, and surprise, surprise, there was no ocean marked anywhere. Classic bad luck. RMC just shook his head and figured he'd wing it, hoping his boat wouldn't run out of the power the poor before he found people. 7 days and nights later, still nothing but sea. 10 more days, and the boat was running on fumes. Just when he was about to say his goodbyes, he finally spotted another ship on the horizon. Except, get this, the thing was basically a wreck. Through his telescope, Li Fan saw the ship was already halfway sunk, with a giant hole in the side. Dozens of survivors were clinging to little rafts, trying not to die. Somebody in the water yelled out that they'd already called for an immortal master to save them and told everyone to chill. Our boy's heart skipped a beat. An immortal master is going to come here? Of course he needs to act fast. He hit his own superboat, jumped into the water, and started doing his best impression of a half-drowned nobody, flailing around and screaming for help. Gotta blend in, right? Then, things got wild. A voice echoed from the clouds, basically telling everyone to shut up. A blurry blue figure floated down. It was the immortal master, all mysterious and untouchable. The second he showed up, the whole world went silent. Li Fan tried to scream again but couldn't even open his mouth. Bro, the pressure was real. The immortal master just gestured lazily, and suddenly the broken ship floated up, fixed itself, and all the survivors, including Li Fan, teleported back onto the deck. Li Fan was impressed and maybe just a little jealous. The immortal master demanded to know who sent the signal. Some guy named Su Changyu fell to his knees and confessed it was him. The immortal master warned him that any messes after this weren't his problem. He'd never seen them, didn't know them. Got it? Changyu bowed even lower and said he understood. The blue guy just nodded, mumbled, and floated away like a ghost. Li Fan watched as the ship sailed again in a new direction. No one dared to talk, and the ride went on for hours. Eventually, they spotted a huge island up ahead, all glittering lights and hundreds of big ships docked at a fancy port. But for some reason, their ship didn't go to the main harbor. They slipped around the back of the island, creeping into a dark cave instead. Inside, a team of big, scary dudes in black robes came to meet them. These guys just herded everyone off the ship and into a huge hall. They told the survivors to eat up and get some rest. Someone would deal with them in the morning. Then the men in black dipped out, leaving everyone to their own business. The survivors started grumbling right away. Some rich kid whined about how his dad forced him to come to the great world to cultivate instead of living it up at home. Another guy bragged about being the son of a prefect and complained about how this place sucked. Yet another told them to quit crying, since all their families paid big money to send them here. Chang Yu shut everyone up, reminding them that if they wanted to become immortal masters and maybe return home rich and powerful, they'd better stop whining and start cultivating. Li Fan watched all this with a weird look. He realized these people were just like him, mortals sent from their own sad land of immortal extinction. The only difference? Unlike his old home, these guys already knew about the cultivation world, and apparently there was already a whole smuggling operation bringing mortals over. Our MC could barely believe it. He looked pretty shook. Indeed, the world is too big for him to understand all of it. Just then, a random man came up behind him, threw a hand on his shoulder, and asked if he was some kind of big shot from Dali or maybe a loaded merchant from the provinces. Looks like Li Fan's cover was about to get tested, dude. But hell yeah. No way our MC is gonna mess up, right? Well, Li Fan wasn't having any of that. He just turned and slapped the guy's wrist, giving him this ice-cold, dead-serious glare. Bro, that poor kid almost had a heart attack. He just froze up, freaked out, and barely managed to stutter a goodbye before running for his life. In his head, the kid was basically screaming that Li Fan looked like some crazy high-level boss and was definitely not someone to mess with. Our MC's scary face game was strong that day. Daybreak hit, then this middle-aged dude in green robes rolled up and started giving everybody a speech. He told the group that soon he would take them to get their household registration, and once they had it, they'd officially be members of Liuli Island. But he also warned them not to go around saying anything stupid, or else he couldn't promise they'd stay safe. Honestly, that sounded pretty serious, so everyone just nodded and kept their mouths shut. Then the guy explained how, if anyone asked, they were supposed to say they all came from Dayu Island in the west. Their island got destroyed by some wind disaster, and now they were just regular old refugees. Basically, stick to the script or else. After that, they all had to change into ragged, dirty clothes to look the part. Then, under the watch of a few beefy guys in black, the whole group followed that middle-aged man through some twisty cave tunnels until they finally climbed out onto the surface. Out there, it was already night, and the place was packed with lanterns and traditional buildings. The port city looked like it was busy all the time. But even with a whole crowd of refugees walking through, the locals just glanced for a second and then acted like nothing weird was going on. Guess this kind of thing happened a lot. The group kept walking, took a bunch of turns, and finally stopped in front of a big old manor house. The gate servant did the report to the manor, then came back and led everyone in through a side door and into a huge hall. Turns out, there were already like 100 other people sitting on the floor in neat groups, all waiting for their turn. When it was finally their group's time, the old man introduced himself as Steward Zhao, paying respect to another old man with long gray hair and sharp reddish eyes. That man then walked up, along with another official named Sun Zhang. He checked if everyone there was a refugee who needed to be registered. Sun Zhang nodded and said that everybody here used to be from wealthy families on Dayu Island, but when the wind disaster hit, and there weren't any immortal masters to save them, all their money and status just vanished in an instant. While he was talking, Sun Zhang slipped Steward Zhao some kind of glowing item. Looked like a little bribe or maybe just proof of something. He said these people had come thousands of miles to get to Liuli Island, and now they were just hoping for a fresh start. Steward Zhao squeezed the glowing thing in his hand and started talking about how the wind disaster had been so bad that even Liuli Island took a hit. Over 200 islands got wrecked and nobody could count how many mortals died. Sun Zhang acted all grateful that the immortal masters were ordering people to help the refugees and promised Steward Zhao would get rewarded for his hard work. Steward Zhao just said not to worry. He'd definitely tell the island lord about all this. After all that talking, Old Man Zhao sat at his desk and started calling people up one by one for their registration. Our MC finally got his turn. The old guy asked for his name, so Li Fan just told him. The guy handed over this see-through green talisman and told Li Fan to put a drop of blood on it. So, our boy just bit his thumb, let some blood drip onto the talisman, and watched as a mysterious character showed up on it. Steward Zhao said that was now his proof of identity, and he had to keep it safe. Anytime he needed to work, get food, or pass any inspection, he'd need this spirit talisman. Lose it, and he'd be in big trouble. While this was going on, Sun Zhang kept staring at Li Fan like he was trying to figure out what made our MC special. Why Steward Zhao was explaining too much when he was just silent with other people. Can't blame him. Li Fan gives off some serious main character vibes. Once everyone had their household registration, the group left the manor, but this time, instead of going back to the cave, they were brought by Sun Zhang into a large stone courtyard. Sun Zhang faced them, with a few guards and cloaks by his side, and started doing business with Su Changyu, who was kind of the leader of the group. Sun Zhang said that since they all had their registration, it was time to sign the contract. Su Changyu pulled out a scroll, bit his thumb, and pressed a bloody thumbprint onto the paper. After whatever the contract is signed, he then asked the important question, how do you get rid of the miasma in their body? Sun Zhang explained, the first way was by using the island's body-purifying spirit pool. If someone could soak in it for a full day and night, all the miasma would be gone. The catch? The pool could only be opened once every 3 years, because it needed a ton of expensive stuff, and they just used it a year ago. So they'd have to wait nearly 2 more years. And even then, there were only a few spots, and competition was crazy. Sun Zhang pretty much told them they didn't stand a chance against the locals. Su Changyu wanted to know what other options they had. So Sun Zhang said the second way was to learn something called the Profound Yellow Pure Heart Mantra, use it with certain medicines, and eat the right foods. After 5 or 6 years, they could slowly clear the miasma for good. It wasn't fast, but it was reliable and safe. Plus, all the stuff they needed could be bought at the island's pharmacies. Su Changyu looked like he was about to lose hope, hearing it would take so long. But he clenched his fist and pushed on, asking if there were any other ways. That's when Sun Zhang dropped the bomb. He got real serious and said the third method was becoming a test subject. Yikes. You know that's not going to end well for anyone. He then explained how some immortal masters were super interested in the weird miasma stuck in mortals' bodies. Every year, a bunch of volunteers got picked from the island's mortals to become test subjects. The dude described how these immortals used crazy methods to rip the miasma out of the test subjects. He said it only took a few months to get rid of all the nastiness in someone's body, but, bro, it was a nightmare. Some unlucky girl once went through it, and Sun Zhang said people either screamed their heads off or just lost their minds from the pain. Su Changyu spoke up, asking if there were any other ways. Sun Zhang explained there was one, but it was pure dreamland. He said only the actual blood kids of those big-shot immortal masters could use rare treasures to fix their bodies, clear the miasma, and even get stronger for cultivation. But dude, that method was so rare, even the boss of this island couldn't do it. Basically, he was saying don't even think about it unless you're some chosen one. Sun Zhang finished up with a classic reality check. He told everyone he knew they'd all gone through hell to get here and wanted to chase immortality. But in the end, most people failed. Even if they managed to clear their miasma, he said only a few could actually grab spiritual energy and start on the immortal path. So, maybe it was smarter to just give up and enjoy being a normal dude instead of chasing trouble. Hearing that, Su Changyu stood there, fist clenched, looking like he wanted to punch a hole through the wall. Well, everyone there did not sign up for enjoy being a nobody. After Sun Zhang left, the whole group broke up and went their own ways. Our protagonist started asking around on the island and found a place to stay for free. So that night, Li Fan was led by a guide past row upon row of tiny houses. Each place was usually just one room but had a small yard surrounded by a wall, so at least it wasn't totally garbage. The guide handed him a key, and he just left. Inside, our boy found only a bed, a little table, and 2 chairs. That was all. But whatever. Li Fan decided he'd take what he could get. At least he had a roof and a place to crash, and honestly, after everything, he was just glad he got settled so easy. He figured it was all thanks to those Li Jie people and their connections, but he also thought, apart from Su Changyu, the rest of them were just spoiled rich kids with no backbone. He mentally rolled his eyes, thinking none of them would ever get anywhere on the cultivation path anyway. Now, he needed to clear out the miasma in his body, as soon as possible. He already had a plan. He had a mountain of treasures and gold stashed away in his Tai Hung boat, and those could buy their way into that body-purifying spirit pool, for sure. The problem? If he suddenly flashed so much wealth, he'd get targeted by bad people. No way he'd survive as a walking treasure chest in this place. Time to take it slow and plan carefully. Just as our boy was lying there, thinking up schemes, someone knocked on his door. Li Fan went full alert mode, asking who it was. A voice answered, "It's him," sounding like they owned the place. Li Fan got out his magic sword, glowing blue and ready for action, then slid the door open just a crack. Standing outside was some Li Jie kid, the one who asked who he really was before. The guy cut right to the chase, saying Li Fan definitely wasn't one of the people from their group. He asked who Li Fan really was and what he was doing sneaking onto Liuli Island. Li Fan was like, "Wait, what?" He demanded to know how this dude figured him out. That man explained that when the shipwreck happened and they all fell in the water, he saw Li Fan pop up from nowhere. At first, he just thought it was his imagination, but later, after thinking about it, he realized Li Fan was never with them when they left the Li Jie. The guy grinned like he was so clever, bragging that none of the other idiots in the group even noticed a stranger had joined them. Li Fan, staying ice cold, wanted to double-check if anyone else had noticed. The guy swore it was just him who figured it out. Well, that was a big mistake. Next thing you know, he killed that man in one stab. The kid didn't even have time to blink before Li Fan sliced him down right there. Dude never saw it coming. Our MC didn't even break a sweat. Li Fan quickly started erasing the mess, using his boat to store that man's body. He was thinking that this guy was an absolute rookie. He got a tiny clue and came running over, trying to play the tough guy, and just because they got their registration, he suddenly thought he was some kind of local boss. Li Fan remembered how careful the real big shots acted, especially that immortal master and Sun Zhang. Clearly, nobody wanted the truth about mortals from the lands of banishment to get out. So, even if someone could track that fatty died here, they won't even care. And just like our MC predicted, a few days passed. Only Su Yu bothered to ask what happened to the missing fatty, and no one else cared. It was business as usual on the island. Li Fan spent those days asking around and scoping out Liuli Island, trying to figure out how to safely use the treasure in his Tai Hong boat without making everyone go crazy with greed. He learned a ton about the place. Turns out, the island was in this huge sea called the Kongyun Sea. Liuli Island was just one of thousands, and it was medium-sized, named after the tasty Liuli fish swimming around its shores. These fish weren't just delicious for mortals, but sometimes they had magic pearls in them that immortal masters really liked. Each year, the immortal master on the island collected a bunch of those pearls, so fishing was the best job around, except you had to give 70% of your catch to the island bosses and could only keep 30% for yourself. And you couldn't just go fishing whenever you wanted. You needed a special lure from the Luli Manor, and private fishing got you killed. No questions asked. He also found out that if you discovered a shipwreck at sea, the same 30/70 rule applied for any treasure you found. Just a few days ago, some lucky fleet scored big with a shipwreck full of gold and jewels. And now everyone wanted to get on the next fishing trip, and maybe got lucky again. Li Fan started forming a plan. He could put treasure from the Tai Hong boat into a new shipwreck, and then find it, making his wealth look legit. It sucks he would get taxed 70%, but never mind. He has a lot of money anyway. The only catch? You had to get permission to go out on the sea alone, and that was almost impossible because everyone was fighting for those slots. But, clever as always, Li Fan found the key. The island lord had 3 main stewards. Steward Zhao handled people, Steward Zhou handled security, and Steward Qian handled finance. Steward Qian kept most of the sea trip slots to himself, and the other 2 only got a couple each. Li Fan remembered how on the day of registration, Steward Zhao had treated him a bit differently than the others. Maybe that was his way in. Our hero decided it was time to pay Steward Zhao a visit and see if he could get things moving for real. Well, our boy already knew just showing up wouldn't get him anywhere. He thought to himself that Steward Zhao was way out of his league for now, so he'd try to go through Sun Zhang instead. But of course, the second Li Fan tried to go inside, one of those hooded guards jumped right in his face. The guy told him that Elder Sun wasn't someone just anybody could see, and basically ordered our dude to get lost, like he was some random nobody. That stung a bit, not gonna lie. Our MC stood there, staring up at the place, thinking the whole thing was pretty weird. If Tianbao Tower was open for business, why kick him out without even asking what he wanted? It was almost like these guards already knew who he was and decided to shut the door in his face. Li Fan wondered if something happened with the Li Ji group that made Sun Zhang want nothing to do with them. He went around asking for info, and soon found out the real reason. Turns out Su Changyu, that guy from before, had been so desperate to get the miasma out of his body that he signed up to be a test subject. He'd even put his name on the contract, finishing off whatever deal the Li Jie had with Tianbao Tower. Now, they were basically strangers, and the tower folks didn't want to talk to them at all. Li Fan was a little surprised Su Changyu made such a bold move, but then he heard it was all to try and save his sick sister. That explained why the dude was acting so desperate. Li Fan stayed quiet, thinking about how Sun Zhang didn't seem like an awful person. He just didn't want to get mixed up with a bunch of lost mortals from the land of immortal extinction. But our protagonist wasn't the type to back off just because things got awkward. He liked dealing with people he understood, so he showed up at Tianbao Tower again. This time, one of the guards got mad right away, yelling that Li Fan must have a death wish coming back. But our boy stood his ground. He raised his voice for everyone to hear and called them out for refusing to even talk business. He asked if this was really how Tianbao Tower treated guests, throwing a little shade at them. The guard was totally flustered, didn't know how to answer that. Some people in the crowd started whispering about what was going on. Finally, the guard had to run off and check with someone higher up. And guess what? They brought Li Fan inside. In the guest room, Li Fan got some fancy tea from a maidservant. He had a sip and let everyone know it tasted good. Right then, Sun Zong walked in, looking all serious. He explained the tea was made from Dayu Flame Dragon, a super rare plant from some volcanoes on Dayu Island, and now, with the destruction of that island, all of the leaves were gone, so this cup was a real treat. Li Fan thanked him, saying he was lucky to get some thanks to Elder Sun's generosity. But Sun Zong cut straight to the point, telling Li Fan that their business together was over and asking why he was even here. Li Fan explained he was just here to talk about a business deal. Sun Zhang looked at him like he was joking, asking what kind of business a guy like him could possibly have. Li Fan leaned in and asked if Tianbao Tower wanted a spot on the sea fleet. Now, that got Sun Zhang thinking. He pictured all the treasure and rare fish that came with a spot on the sea fleet. He admitted even Tianbao Tower would love something like that, but then explained that all those spots were tightly controlled by Steward Xian. Even Steward Zhao struggled to get a slot, so how could a new guy like Li Fan possibly hope to get one? Li Fan said if he could meet with Steward Zhao, he had his own way to convince him. Sun Zhang thought about it for a second, then turned to speak to someone else. That's when a woman appeared, the shopkeeper. She was dressed super fancy, with her face hidden behind a veil. She told Sun Zhang that if Li Fan's plan failed, they could just chop him up and feed him to the fish. Sun Zhang bowed to her, super respectful, and then Li Fan thanked her for the chance. The shopkeeper studied Li Fan, saying he seemed pretty confident and didn't look like some random loudmouth. Li Fan told her he always kept his promises. She just snorted, saying if he really succeeded, Tianbao Tower would take a cut of whatever profit came in. Li Fan laid out his plan. He said the island rules meant 30% of the harvest from each sea trip went straight to the one finding it. And he told her he didn't want a single penny of that. Instead, he'd split that 30% in half for Steward Zhao, half for the tower. That made the shopkeeper pause. She thought it was kind of weird. Why go through all this trouble if he didn't even want the money? She wanted to know what he really wanted. Our MC didn't hesitate. He looked right at her and said the only thing he wanted was a spot in the body-tempering spirit pool that only opened every 3 years. Now that got both the shopkeeper and Sun Zhang to flip out for a second. The shopkeeper burst out laughing, saying it was hilarious that a guy as old as Li Fan still wanted to become a cultivator. But Li Fan's face turned super serious. He said the only thing he wanted was to chase a long life. Even if it killed him, he'd have no regrets. The shopkeeper stopped laughing and stared at him in silence. Something about Li Fan's attitude seemed to get through to her, even though her face was hidden. After a moment, she agreed to his deal. After the meeting ended, the shopkeeper told him that when the time came, she would send someone to let him know. After walking out, Sun Zhang looked at the shopkeeper and started talking about that spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. The shopkeeper explained even though spots were hard to get, Tianbao Tower actually had the power to compete for one. And if Li Fan really managed to get them a sea fleet, in just 5 years the profits would be worth as much as one of those pool spots. This is guaranteed profit. But then she got quiet and looked kind of freaked out. She admitted that Li Fan's eyes had been super scary. Bro, Li Fan's aura must be super heavy. So many people seem to be afraid of him. Anyway, back at Li Fan, the dude got right to work. He stopped by the apothecary and grabbed the profound yellow pure heart mantra and the medicine that goes with it. In his head, he figured that even if he had to wait 2 whole years for the body-purifying spirit pool, he might as well give this whole cultivation thing a shot now. Maybe he'd get lucky and be some kind of genius who could shake off the miasma by himself in way less time. Our MC loves to dream big, huh? So, for the next few days, he just stayed home, focusing on his new cultivation plan and waiting for Steward Zhao to show up. But before he even got a visit, he heard something that totally shocked him. Su Changyu died. Man, this was rough. The poor guy's body came back as nothing but a bloody mess, all twisted and broken. It was a straight-up horror show. The corpse didn't even look human. It still twitched sometimes, which was just plain nasty. Most of the survivors didn't even have enough cash to buy a burial plot, so they were planning to just dump him at sea. But Li Fan couldn't let that happen, so he pulled out some money and made sure Su Changyu got a proper grave on land. Xiao Heng, Changyu's brother, was totally crushed. He knelt in the rain by the grave and cried his heart out. The guy was a mess. Li Fan just stood there in the rain, not feeling much about it, just a bit sad, honestly. He thought Su Changyu had always acted decently and had a pretty strong will. He wasn't a genius, but he definitely wasn't useless either. Out of all their group, he figured Changyu was the one most likely to make a name for himself. But look what happened. The guy died so fast he didn't even make it through the test subject phase. Not even a sound, just gone. Damn. The immortal path was brutal. After that, Li Fan locked himself away and started working on the profound yellow pure heart mantra. But let's be real. Dude wasn't some hidden prodigy. He spent an entire month doing nothing but cultivating, but nothing happened. Most people, even with average talent, would have felt more energetic and smarter after just half a month. But our MC felt absolutely nothing, not even a tiny bit of change. Did he freak out? Nope. He just treated it like a chore and kept going. Another half month rolled by, and finally, someone from Tianbao Tower came knocking. A messenger in a cloak showed up at the door and brought Li Fan back to the big tower. There, he met up with Steward Zhao, the big boss with the long gray hair. Li Fan greeted him, saying it had been a while. Steward Zhao got straight to the point, asking if Li Fan really wanted a sea fleet spot and what kind of crazy background he had. Li Fan told him that fleets went out to sea just to chase profit, so he asked Steward Zhao which made more money, catching liuli fish or salvaging treasure from shipwrecks. Steward Zhao admitted that finding treasure could be worth several normal fishing trips, but you couldn't count on that kind of luck every time. In all his years, he'd only seen a few big hauls, but our MC wasn't even fazed. Li Fan promised that if he led the fleet, he could guarantee that every single trip would bring back some kind of treasure. Now that sounded insane, right? Even Steward Zhao had to pause. He stared hard at Li Fan, and his eye actually started glowing red as he checked him out. Turns out, Steward Zhao was born with something called spiritual eyes. He could spot if someone was telling the truth and see what kind of person you really were. He said that when Li Fan spoke, he saw a soft white light coming from him, so he knew our MC meant every word and wasn't trying to scam him. Li Fan was a little surprised this kind of magical skill even existed. He asked if that's why Steward Zhao had acted a bit different toward him during the registration. Zhao confirmed it, saying he'd noticed right away that Li Fan was loaded and had a lot of blood on his hands. Clearly, our MC wasn't some average nobody, so he had played nice and made a connection just in case. They kept talking, and Zhao explained that back on registration day, he'd also realized Sun Zhang from Tianbao Tower wasn't telling the truth. But honestly, Zhao didn't care much either way. With an immortal master protecting the island, they weren't scared of random trouble, so as long as the refugees behaved, no one would mess with them. Besides, he said, taking in refugees was an order from the immortal master himself. Li Fan finally asked if Zhao would reconsider giving him that sea fleet spot. But Zhao pointed out that, as a newcomer with no connections, if he handed over a whole fleet straight away, other people would flip out. So he came up with a plan. Next time the fleet went out, Li Fan could tag along. If he really could find treasure every single time, it wouldn't take long for the crew to respect him, and then he could take over officially. Li Fan agreed, looking cool and confident as usual. Meanwhile, up in the tower, the shopkeeper and Sun Zhang had been spying on the whole thing. The shopkeeper was actually shocked, thinking there was no way Li Fan could have convinced Steward Zhao that easily. Sun Zhang agreed, and they both wondered just what kind of secret power or money this uncle really had. Then the shopkeeper made a big decision. She told her assistant to send Li Fan the deed for a fancy courtyard on East Street, inside the city. The assistant freaked out, reminding her they'd paid a lot for that property and were saving it to bribe another big shot. He said they should at least wait until Li Fan helped them get the fleet. But the shopkeeper just told him, no, do it now. If they waited until Li Fan really became a star, that little courtyard wouldn't even be enough to get his attention. Bro, she was ready to go all in on our MC before he even proved himself. Honestly, this girl is pretty smart. The next day, Li Fan just got handed the deed to a fancy courtyard by Sun Zhang's people. Did he say no? Hell no. The dude had nothing to pack anyway, so he moved into his new East Street place that very same day. And let me tell you, compared to the trashy slums outside the city, this spot was like paradise. It was peaceful, full of bamboo, with those old-style buildings. Pretty sick upgrade. Pretty soon, Tianbao Tower sent over a bunch of pretty maidservants in pink trying to catch his eye. But our boy wasn't interested in any of that, so he turned them all down. After that, he just kept things low-key, waiting for the sea fleet to set sail. He figured he wouldn't have to wait long. But then, boom, something wild happened and the fleet's trip got delayed for who knows how long. Suddenly, out on the streets, the sky turned super dark. People started running and freaking out. One guy shouted that everyone should get home quick because the wind disaster was coming. Someone else started praying for the immortal master to protect them. A little kid was screaming for his mom. Total chaos, dude. Outside, the wind was going insane. Some poor guy actually got smacked by a gust so hard he went flying. But then, right when things were about to get ugly, a giant blue light swirled up from the ground. This energy dome covered the whole island, blocking out the storm. A calm voice echoed out, telling everyone not to panic. The island protection grand formation was up, but they had to stay inside. People calmed down and looked up at the glowing blue shield in the sky. Some old man even dropped to his knees and started praying, saying the immortal master was really merciful. Back in his room, our MC stood by his window, staring at this crazy barrier in the sky. He saw those glowing blue shields, and he thought the outside sounded like ghosts screaming, but inside it was all peaceful. He wondered if this was what immortal magic was really like, but just as he was getting used to it, bam! A giant bolt of purple lightning came crashing down from the clouds, shaped like a lotus flower, and slammed into the blue dome. The shockwave was so strong that poor Li Fan got blown across the room. He thought, damn, that heavenly lightning was no joke. Even the leftovers from it could mess him up. He tried to get up, but then another wave of purple lightning smashed down, even bigger this time. The whole place lit up purple, and our boy started thinking that maybe this was it for him. But nope, turns out that blue shield was tough as hell. Even with all that beating, it didn't break. After a while, nobody knew how long, the storm finally started to calm down. But only a little. Outside, the island was still wrapped in the blue dome, with the sky dark and rainy. The wind disaster had come out of nowhere, but now it was taking forever to leave. Li Fan felt like 2 or 3 days passed before the storm actually stopped. Some people told him this one was actually a small disaster. The one 15 years ago? Way worse. That time, the shield almost broke and had to shrink, making the island only a third as big as before. After that, they picked up refugees and started rebuilding. A few days after the storm, everyone on the island got new orders. Each household had to check if the protection formation was still working. The Li family gave out blue talismans to everyone, and all you had to do was hang it up and see if it turned red. If it stayed blue, you were good. The Immortal Master made this the top priority, so every other job on the island stopped until the shield got checked. Li Fan watched the talisman glow in his hand and listened to another voice say they had to make sure no part of the grand formation was broken. He learned that the Immortal Master used to fix up the barrier himself. This time, though, the special magic stones that powered the shield were almost used up, so the Immortal Master had to leave the island to get more. Talismans were hung everywhere, and the formation ran cycles to make extra sure there wasn't any damage. Li Fan thought it was wild how giant and complicated the whole thing was. Like, how did they even build something this epic? 5 days later, good news finally came out. The shield was fine. Everyone breathed a huge sigh of relief. And when the Immortal Master came back, people cheered like they just won the lottery. Life on Liuli Island slowly went back to normal. Over the next few months, new refugees from other islands arrived every so often. Most people out there didn't survive the wind disaster, so only a handful made it to safety. You could see on the map how big the sea was, full of islands, but only a few had their own Immortal Master for protection. During this whole time, did our MC just sit around? No way. He kept grinding the profound yellow pure heart mantra, trying to level up. And finally, he started to see some results. The system popped up and showed that both his physical and mental age limits went up a bit. Not much, but enough to make him feel pumped. Progress, bro. Another month rolled by, and finally, Steward Zhao sent him a message. The wind disaster was gone, and the fleet was about to set sail. 3 days later, Li Fan was down at the harbor, staring up at the Kangshan, a massive ship with a ton of sails. He thought, so this is the ship Zhao was talking about. Up on deck, the sailors were already gossiping. One was freaking out that the island lord was planning some big assessment, and whoever brought back the least treasure would get kicked off the fleet for good. The guys were stressing since the neighboring coral island got wiped out in the disaster, and now their own island had to cover all the missing supplies. Some guys complained this was impossible, and others said it was just temporary. But then this tough dude, Zhang Haobo, stepped up and told them to quit whining. He pointed out that first place got a reward. The harvest share would jump from 30% to 50%. Someone joked that they'd never win anyway, not with their fishing skills. Another sailor even wondered if they should just become pirates instead of going back. But Zhang Haobo just smiled and made sure everyone did not worry, because he had someone capable here. And our boy Li Fan finally walked up, looking cool as ever. Zhang Haobo promised the whole gang that with Li Fan on board, everyone would come home with a full load of gold. But the other sailor, looking at Li Fan, said this pale kid looked way too soft to be a sailor and asked if Li Fan was really the real deal. Then, out of nowhere, Zhang Haobo told everyone that Li Fan was some big shot handpicked by Steward Zhao himself, and that they all needed to show respect because Li Fan was taking over as captain. The crew lost it. One guy complained that Zhang Haobo had been their captain for 10 years. How could he just step down? Another guy said Zhang Haobo had saved his life, and he didn't care what anyone said, he wouldn't let some outsider take over. As all the sailors were shouting, Li Fan just stood there, looking cool, and not even a little bit bothered. The truth is, this was just provocation from Zhang Haobo. He just smirked, looking at how everyone just wanted him to be the captain. Continuing his drama, he told everyone to chill out. He said, yeah, he knew the crew liked him, but at the end of the day, the ship belonged to Steward Zhao, and all of them were just risking their lives for Zhao. If Zhao wanted to replace him, there was nothing he could do about it. Li Fan looked out at the angry faces and just said, pretty much, that these guys were playing childish tricks. He told them they might not trust him, but did they really think Steward Zhao was dumb enough to make a mistake? Li Fan promised that every time they went out to sea, he'd find treasure for them, and he wasn't about to let anyone down. The crew started to whisper among themselves. Some wondered if maybe this man actually had some skills, since Steward Zhao was famous for never making mistakes. But Zhang Haobo just glared at Li Fan and said he didn't buy it one bit. He thought Li Fan had just wormed his way into the captain's spot and said he wanted to see how Li Fan would explain himself when he failed. Then he shouted for everyone to set sail. So, the Kangyuan sailed out, but this ship was a little different. It didn't need wind or even sailors to row. Instead, it used magic formations powered by spirit stones. It even had a spirit lure device that was supposed to help them find schools of rare spirit fish. But the sea was crazy big, the last storm had messed up all the fish patterns, and honestly, the crew was just guessing. It was all luck now, bro. Total needle in a haystack situation. Fast forward, more than half a month passed, and the Kangyuan's luck was trash. The crew only caught a little regular fish and some boring sea rocks. The barrels looked sad, and even Zhang Haobo was starting to sweat. The rules were that whoever brought back the least treasure was in big trouble, and they had less than a month left. Some of the crew were complaining that at this rate, they'd have the smallest haul. Someone else said all they could do was pray for a miracle. Life at sea sucked, man. Suddenly, Li Fan stepped out from his cabin. Zhang Haobo tried to clown him, saying he finally came out after hiding in his room forever, and joked that if Li Fan didn't come out to eat, they would have thought he died in there. Our MC just stared him down and said he wanted a small boat because he saw treasure out in the sea. The whole crew looked at him like he was insane. Zhang Haobo basically freaked out and asked if Li Fan was joking. Li Fan pointed out to the water and said they needed to hurry up and get him a boat because he saw jewels shining down there, but the light was fading fast. If they waited, they'd miss the treasure. Zhang Haobo started yelling for the crew to get the boat ready, like he was suddenly 100% on board with this wild plan. The crew rushed around and shoved Li Fan into a little rowboat. Someone asked why they couldn't follow him, and Li Fan just told them they were too noisy and would mess up his view. Dude was straight up bossing everyone around now. So, there he went, rowing out into the huge sea all by himself. Zhang Haobo and the crew stared at him from the big ship, trying to figure out if our boy was really going for treasure or just making a run for it. One sailor even wondered if Li Fan was actually running away, but Zhang Haobo said that was nonsense. Since Li Fan didn't even take any food, where would he go anyway? 2 hours went by, and it was dark outside now. Suddenly, a red signal flare shot up in the distance. The crew saw it and went into full panic mode, yelling for everyone to get moving toward the signal. They sailed the Kangyuan over and found Li Fan still in his little boat, waving them down. He told them the treasure was right there. Zhang Haobo started shouting for everyone to get in the water and throw out the nets. The crew all jumped to it, yelling back with a ton of energy. Next thing you know, the deck of the Kangyuan was buried in open chests, overflowing with gold, silver, and sparkling jewels. 16 whole chests, bro. Zhang Haobo was sweating bullets, just standing there in shock. trying to process what he was seeing. One of the sailors grabbed his arm and said Li Fan wasn't lying. He could really help them all come back with a full load. Zhang Haobo just kept staring at the mountain of treasure, thinking to himself that, holy crap, you really could find lost treasure at the bottom of the sea. He started beating himself up inside, saying he was an idiot for not seeing how special Li Fan was, and for thinking Li Fan was just there to steal his dumb little fleet. He decided then and there that he had to go apologize right away, or he'd never forgive himself. Well, at least this guy is not dumb enough to keep annoying Li Fan. So, as soon as our boy got back on the Kangyuan, that big dude Zhang Haobo showed up all humble, bowing and saying sorry like his life depended on it. Guess our MC had earned some serious respect. But Li Fan just told the guy it was all good, brushed it off in a chill way, and went to take a break in his room. That's how you know you're the boss. Don't even need to rub it in. After that monster haul, nobody on the Kangyuan even thought about more fishing. They turned that ship around so fast, heading right back to Liuli Island. With all that treasure on board, everyone was nervous as hell until they hit land again. When the ship got close to the port, Zhang Haobo was already planning ahead. He told Liu San, one of his crew, to sneak into the water and go let Steward Zhao know they were back, and he needed to come count the loot himself. No way they were letting strangers touch those chests, he said. If outsiders started counting, you could bet someone would try to cheat them. The crew started shouting that the boss was totally right. If they lost even a little bit of treasure, it would break their hearts too. They waited for a while, and then slowly moved closer to shore. Some inspectors in green robes tried to board, but Zhang Haobo and his crew just blocked the way, standing there like walls. One inspector got all loud, saying Zhang Haobo must have come back empty this time, and maybe he was finally going to lose his job as captain. Yet, Zhang Haobo basically told him to shut it. Looking at all of that, our boy thought, yeah, maybe Zhang Haobo kept his captain's seat all these years just because he knew how to play it safe. But then, Steward Zhao rolled up with his own squad, and everything changed. The crew started unloading 16 huge chests, all stuffed with gold, jewels, and shiny stuff. They stacked them right there on the pier, in front of a massive crowd. People were losing their minds, bro. The news spread across the whole island faster than you could blink. Everyone was talking about how the Kangyuan just pulled off the wildest haul ever. Meanwhile, over at Tianbao Tower, Sun Zong came bursting into this fancy room, gasping for breath, calling for the shopkeeper. The woman didn't even bother looking up, and asked what the big deal was. He could barely get the words out, and saying something about treasure, 10 chests, the Kangyuan. The shopkeeper just brushed it off at first, saying it was lucky that other people got treasure again. But then she heard it was the Kangyuan, that ship with Li Fan on it, and she suddenly spun around, looking super shocked. Sun Zhang started bragging about Li Fan, saying it was no wonder he convinced Steward Zhao so easily. He had mad skills, finding treasure the second he went to sea. Almost like the legendary boss of their tower. The shopkeeper snapped back into action, telling Sun Zhang to arrange a dinner invite for Li Fan and to clean up Xingyo Tower so Li Fan could have the title deed. After the guy ran off, she started thinking to herself, wondering if Li Fan had the legendary psychic treasure body, the ability to sense rare treasures nearby. She remembered her big sis, Yin Yueting, who had that same power and basically built the Tianbao Tower Empire just by finding treasure like a magnet. Now she thought, damn, could there be another one like that? Later, Li Fan was chilling at a table with Steward Zhao, sharing drinks like two big bosses. Steward Zhao told Li Fan he was seriously impressive for pulling up that much treasure on his first trip. He said Li Fan had shocked him, in a good way. Our boy just kept it humble, saying the haul was huge this time, but it wasn't going to be that easy next time. Steward Zhao agreed and said, yeah, nobody's that lucky forever. But honestly, this one haul was enough for him to give Li Fan his own fleet. Li Fan thanked him politely, not making a big deal out of it. Then Steward Zhao brought up the body-purifying spirit pool, saying he heard Li Fan was desperate to get a spot. He admitted that even if someone got to live 100 years, in the end, they'd just turn into dust. But Li Fan went full philosopher, saying that only by chasing immortality and searching for the immortal path could anyone say their life meant something. Steward Zhao looked at our MC with real respect and said he couldn't even compare to Li Fan's ambitions. He then got a little personal, talking about how, years ago, he saved an immortal master when he was young. That master offered to take him as a student, but he knew he was already too old to start cultivating for real. Plus, the older you get, the worse the miasma in your body, and the harder it gets to remove. Sounds like pure torture, honestly. Now, he was getting old and started to regret not taking that chance. But well, there's no medicine for regret. On this whole island, barely anyone was like Li Fan, still chasing the path of immortality. Our MC just brushed off the compliment and cut straight to business. He wanted to know about the spirit pool spot, but Zhao said he couldn't help there. The Immortal Master was in charge of the pool, and every year before it opened, he'd announce what supplies were needed. Each family had to bring in stuff from the list, and those who contributed the most got the spots. But he told him to relax. Tianbao Tower had branches on every island in the sea, and nobody was better at collecting supplies than them. In Li Fan's mind, the shopkeeper from Tianbao Tower popped up, and our boy was already plotting how to get involved. Afterward, Li Fan went back to his fancy little courtyard. But before he could even chill, Sun Zhang from Tianbao Tower was already waiting for him. Dude had clearly been standing out there forever with some papers in his hands. He asked if Li Fan's shopkeeper had business with him. Li Fan said sure. He wanted to meet her anyway. Sun Zhang tried to give him the deed to Jingyo Tower, but our MC turned it down. He doesn't want to be too greedy. That night, he got led through the super fancy Tianbao Tower to a balcony, where this beautiful woman in a white and gold dress was waiting for him. No veil this time. The shopkeeper introduced herself as Yin Yu Zhen, the boss of Tianbao Tower on Liuli Island. Li Fan just said his name, plain and simple. Yin Yu Zhen teased him for being so brief, calling him uncle to poke fun at him. But our MC just said he was just a regular mortal, nothing special. But Yin Yu Zhen wasn't buying it. She came right out and asked if being a psychic treasure body was really nothing special to him. So, our boy asked, what that treasure body is anyway. Yin Yu Zhen explained that it was a body for people like him. Just think about it. How could he have found the treasure out in the giant sea if he didn't have a psychic treasure body? Our boy just shrugged and said he felt it in his heart. That just made Yin Yu Zhen more annoyed. She puffed her cheeks and looked like she wanted to smack him, saying there was no way he could deny it now. She finally gave up and explained to him what a psychic treasure body actually was. Our MC listened and then started grilling her right back about her sister. He asked how old her sister was, what she looked like, where she was 20 years ago, and where she was now. Yin Yu Zhen stared at him, totally lost. Bro, she had no idea what to do with our MC's weird questions. Anyway, she explained that she and her sister were from Yellen Island up north. When they were still little, their parents died from some disease, and the two girls got left behind with only each other to depend on. That was rough. She remembered every day was a struggle. They begged for food and never knew if they'd eat the next day. But after a while, something weird started to happen. Her sister kept finding valuable stuff, like, out of nowhere. She would be digging through garbage and somehow come up with a magic crystal or a glowing jade vase. Thanks to that, life got a whole lot better, and eventually her sister even managed to create Tianbao Tower all on her own. Respect. Then Yin Yu Zhen got all sad. She said she hadn't seen her sister in years. Of course, our MC was curious. Where did her sister go? She looked up at the sky, and her face kinda hurt to look at. She said 3 years ago, some immortal master came by, saw her sister, and just took her away. In the beginning, her sister would send letters, telling everyone she was safe, but after a while, the news stopped. Total silence. Our boy tried to guess, maybe the immortal master took her to cultivate? But Yin Yu Zhen just shook her head and said it would be nice if it was that simple. She explained that in one of those old letters, her sister sent a secret code only she could understand. The message basically said things were dangerous, and if she never sent another letter, it meant something bad happened. She also told her not to come looking for her. That hit hard, dude. Our MC started thinking, maybe her sister's special ability got her into trouble. She could sense treasures, but they were just valuable for mortals. To immortal masters, that kind of treasure was about as useful as garbage. Other immortal masters had noticed the ability before, but nobody cared until that last one took her away, and nobody knows why. Even though her sister was gone, Yin Yu Zhen was determined to keep Tianbao Tower going. She said business had gotten worse since her sister disappeared, especially because she didn't have that same magic touch. After she messed up a few times and they lost a lot of money, the elders in Tianbao Tower weren't happy. Some of them even wanted to team up with outsiders and push her out to split the money. But they were still scared of her sister's connection to the immortal master, so they didn't make a move yet. So Yin Yu Zhen left Yellen Island, using the excuse of business expansion to come all the way to Liuli Island. She wanted to lay low for a bit and build up power before fighting back. But then, surprise! She met another psychic treasure body. Yep, our MC, right here on Liuli Island. She reached out to Li Fan and said if he helped her, she could definitely win back control of Tianbao Tower. But our boy wasn't interested in her drama. He just wanted to cultivate. He reminded her that she had promised if he helped her get the fleet, she'd help him get a spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. He wanted to make sure she wasn't about to break her word. The girl flashed him a business smile and said Tianbao Tower always kept its promises. But there was a but, of course. She pointed out that even if he got into the spirit pool, clearing the miasma from his body wouldn't be easy. Only about half the people who tried actually made it, and if you were older, your odds dropped even more. One shot only, bro. If you failed, goodbye to your cultivation dreams forever. But our hero wasn't scared. He said even 50% was worth the risk. Still, he could tell she was hinting at something. And she was. Yin Yuzhen pulled out a glowing purple pill and explained that her sister had sent it with her last letter. This was the dust-leaving pill. If you took it and then went into the spirit pool, your odds of success would shoot up, even for someone uncle-aged like our MC. Li Fan, sharp as always, asked why she hadn't taken the pill herself. The girl just frowned and said not everyone was obsessed with cultivation like him. All she wanted was to keep doing business and protect the tower her sister built. Our boy nodded and said everyone had their own dreams. She then grinned and asked if that meant he was in. But our MC turned away and said he'd think about it and give her an answer in 3 days. Yin Yuzhen called after him, still smiling, saying she'd wait for his reply. The moment Li Fan left, her smile faded and she looked super serious. She hoped she wasn't making a mistake by trusting our MC. Later on, our protagonist checked around and found out Yin Yuzhen was telling the truth about the dust-leaving pill. So, after 3 days, he met her again and agreed to her plan. Here was the deal. Before the spirit pool opened, Li Fan would help Tianbao Tower collect a certain amount of treasure. When the spirit pool opened, Yin Yuzhen would give him the dust-leaving pill in return. To show she meant business, she handed our boy the big mansion again. This time, since they had a real agreement, he took it. So, pause for another move. Li Fan now lived in this awesome new place called Tingyu Tower, right in the center of Liuli Island. Even though it was in a busy market, it felt peaceful, like being way out in the mountains. During the year he spent there, our MC went on 3 official sea trips for Liuli Island. Every time, he came back with crazy amounts of treasure, making the whole island freak out. He earned Tianbao Tower a precious fleet spot, and after that, he pretty much joined every trip. In just 1 year, Tianbao Tower made as much money as it had in the past 5 years combined. That's some boss-level treasure hunting. Soon, everyone at Tianbao Tower respected and even feared Li Fan. But our boy wasn't just chasing money, he kept up with his cultivation too. Whenever he had a break, he did his best to practice the profound yellow pure heart mantra. Finally, something happened that made him super hyped. His system started charging way faster than before. Normally, it would take 20 years to hit 100%, but now, in just 1 year, he charged up by 14% instead of the usual 6-7%. That was almost double. The only thing he was doing differently was practicing the pure heart mantra, so he figured that must be the reason. Not only did his system charge faster, but his physical and mental age limits shot up too. Dude was leveling up for real. After all that training and treasure hunting, before he knew it, there was only 1 year left before the body-purifying spirit pool would open. One day, Yin Yuzhen came up to our MC with a huge smile and told him that Liuli Island had just posted the list of people that the Immortal Master needed this time. Man, things were about to get interesting. Then, they were gathered to discuss the list of stuff needed for the big deal this year. Basically, what you had to bring if you wanted into the body-purifying spirit pool. Sun Zhang was thinking that everything looked normal except for this one thing, Star Sea Quicksand. He had never even heard of it, and neither had the others. He said getting that stuff was going to be the real challenge this time. Yin Yuzhen said they would probably need to ask the Manhwa Chamber of Commerce about it, since those guys sold rare things. But Sun Zhang was not happy about this. He said those Manhwa people were like hungry ghosts, and would definitely make them spend a ton of money. But our MC wasn't giving up. He said they had to get the Star Sea Quicksand no matter what. He was determined to grab a spot in the spirit pool. Classic, stubborn Li Fan. By the way, the Manhwa Chamber of Commerce wasn't even from around here. They came from super far away, from the mainland, like tens of thousands of kilometers across the sea. They could travel so easily because they had immortal masters backing them up. That explained why they rolled up to this tiny Liuli Island to do business. Yin Yuzhen said they still had a year to prepare. The next Manhwa merchant would pass through in 3 months, so she could reach out when the time came. Li Fan, though, said they couldn't just sit around and hope. He pointed out that all the new refugees on the island might know about this item, and other groups would be looking for it too. So he told everyone to keep an eye on them. and not let anything slip by. Pretty soon, news about the spirit pool materials spread everywhere. Even random people who usually didn't care were now talking about something called Star Sea Quicksand, and all the big factions wanted to get their hands on it. A few days later, Xiao Heng showed up at Tingyu Tower, looking for Li Fan. Our hero asked what business he had, and Xiao Heng got right to it. He said he'd heard Li Fan was searching for Star Sea Quicksand. Our boy admitted he was, since he was old, and needed the spirit pool if he wanted to cultivate. So he asked if Xiao Heng knew anything. The boy grinned and said, back in the day, when the immortal master visited their hometown, he promised that if people could gather everything on his supplies list, he'd take them to the cultivation world. Our protagonist was surprised. He asked if Star Sea Quicksand was on that list. Xiao Heng explained that it was, but normal folks never saw it. The thing is, his family is the one assigned to collect this Star Sea Quicksand. Li Fan knew what was up, so he asked what Xiao Heng wanted for this info. The boy looked sad and said that our MC had helped bury his brother Chang Yu, so he shouldn't ask for anything. But life on the island was just too rough. He admitted he was still stuck in the slums while our boy was living rich. Li Fan told him not to say more, he understood. He promised that if Xiao Heng could give him a clue, he could ask for anything reasonable. The boy was so happy, he thanked Li Fan for the promise. So, he started telling the details about the real Star Sea Quicksand. Turns out, it wasn't some rare magical thing, it was just meteorite iron from the sky. Our boy was shocked. He double-checked if it had to be any special type, and Xiao Heng explained that it needed to look bumpy, not smooth, and each piece had to be at least 50 kilograms in weight and so on. Our boy memorized every single detail. After all the details, our boy asked what Xiao Heng wanted as the payment. The boy said he just wanted a nice courtyard, an easy job, and maybe some servants to help him out. That was all. Li Fan laughed. He said, for a prince's son, those were some chill requests. He asked if Xiao Heng wanted to ask for more, but Xiao Heng shook his head. He said he only wanted to live well and not attract trouble. Too much money could get you killed around here. After that, Xiao Heng was about to leave. Our MC asked if he was going to try cultivating, but the boy said he didn't really care about cultivation. Reading the cultivation technique made him drowsy immediately. Right after that, Li Fan went straight to Tianbao Tower and told Yin Yuzhen the news. She couldn't believe it. She asked if Star Sea Quicksand was really just meteorite iron. Is that simple? Our protagonist said Xiao Heng wouldn't lie, but they should still check with the Manhwa merchant just to be sure. Yin Yuzhen agreed. She said they could ask the Manhwa guy when he came, but Li Fan was already making plans. He wanted to start secretly buying up any meteorite iron that matched the requirements before too many people figured it out. He even said they should mix it in with other stuff to hide what they were doing. Our boy was getting serious. He wanted people to spread fake rumors about what Star Sea Quicksand was, so the other factions would get confused and not know what to buy. Yin Yuzhen looked at him like he was some kind of genius. She said she knew he was special, but never expected him to plan things out this well. She even asked what he did before coming here. Li Fan just said he taught people to read books. Huh, good one. He then told her to take care of everything, including Xiao Heng's requests, and unless something big happened, to leave him alone so he could cultivate. After he left, Yin Yuzhen sat there, thinking hard. She remembered that she had always been able to sense if something was lucky or unlucky. The truth was, she got this ability called the Seek Good Fortune and Avoid Calamity. Since meeting our MC and doing what he said, her sense of luck had never been this strong. Like every path is going to be a huge success. She was now sure that helping our MC was the right thing, even if she didn't understand why. Anyway, out on the streets, things got wild. Thanks to all the fake news from Tianbao Tower, everyone was running around trying to buy dog bezoars, fish stones, horse bezoars, you name it. Merchants were selling out and prices on the island went totally insane. Everyone was confused, and nobody knew what Star Sea Quicksand really was. The other big groups finally freaked out and joined in, making the chaos even worse. Meanwhile, our protagonist just chilled in his mansion, meditating and practicing his pure heart mantra, acting all innocent, while the whole island was losing their minds. 3 months later, Yin Yuzhen finally got a message. The Manhwa Chamber of Commerce's merchant was about to arrive. Early in the morning, she and Li Fan took a little boat out into the sea to meet the guy at an agreed spot. Suddenly, a huge, fancy flying boat with dragon carvings came down from the sky, looking totally epic. From up above, the merchant walker laughed and called out to Yin Yuzhen, saying it had been a long time. After the boat docked, looking at how big and magnificent the flying boat was, Yin Yuzhen totally expected Li Fan to be freaking out. But damn, Our MC was not even impressed at all. The girl was so surprised, she started making a big deal out of it, saying that most people would react, but Li Fan was just too cool. Anyway, Walker Wu, the boss of this boat, then greeted Yin Yuzhen. He said it had been a while, and she agreed, telling him that the last time they met was 3 years ago. Walker somehow pointed at Li Fan, asking who he was. She just said he was an elder hired by Tianbao Tower. Walker then acted all polite and said it was a pleasure, then told Yin Yuzhen they should check out the goods right away. He said this could be the last time they met, which kind of shocked her. She wanted to know what he meant. So Walker explained that his headquarters had told all the merchants in the Kongyun Sea to pack up and leave immediately. He didn't know the reason either, just that it was urgent. He even said he was only here because he had already promised her a trade. So, no time to waste. This deal had to be quick. Yin Yuzhen started worrying in her head, thinking that Tianbao Tower only did so well because they had the Manhwa Chamber of Commerce backing them up. If these guys pulled out, things were going to get rough. She even wondered why her special sense for luck and danger didn't warn her about this. Walker called her back to reality, and she apologized for spacing out. She told him they could go look at the goods now. So, he led the way through the flying boat, and our boy started to list all the goods they brought to trade. Like 16 pairs of jade discs, corals, shining pearls, and other good stuff. But Li Fan said these 3 big, rough, dark green Starseed quicksand were the most valuable. Walker was so shocked he couldn't believe it. He picked up one of the heavy stones with one hand, as if it weighed nothing. He then praised Yin Yuzhen for her good luck, telling her that it was rare to see such high-quality Starseed quicksand. Hearing the confirmation that the thing was really Starseed quicksand, Li Fan gave Yin Yuzhen a look, thinking to himself that Xiaoheng's intel was on point. So, meteorite iron really was the right answer. Walker was pumped about the treasures Tianbao Tower brought, and since he hadn't seen Yin Yuzhen in so long, he invited them to stay as guests on the flying boat. They had a big feast and hung out for a while. After eating, Walker took them to check out the ship's warehouse, which was stacked with all kinds of weird stuff. He said he'd collected these things from all over the Kongyun Sea. Some of them were priceless, and some he didn't even know the function of. He just bought them because they looked interesting. He told Li Fan and Yin Yuzhen they could each pick a couple things, but they had to move fast. Yin Yuzhen looked around and rolled her eyes inside. She thought, with her special sense, this was like a mouse falling into a jar of rice. Tons of options, but nothing truly special to our boy. He figured all these treasures were just regular mortal stuff, so he wasn't interested. He then picked up a little blue pearl that glowed and thought the material was nice. But honestly, after living 300 years, he was bored of normal treasures. If it wasn't about cultivation, he didn't care. But then, out of nowhere, his system popped up. It said it found a rechargeable item, a mystical object of heaven and earth called the Kanghai Pearl, and it wasn't even fully formed yet. Our guy almost lost it, but forced himself to act casual. He quickly put the pearl back so nobody got suspicious. Yin Yuzhen asked if he wasn't going to pick something, joking that Walker was being generous for once and this was a rare chance. Li Fan looked at Walker, who was still grinning, saying Li Fan couldn't just walk away empty-handed. That would be lame. So our boy picked up the blue pearl and also grabbed a green jade statue that looked like coral. Walker was hyped. He explained that the ancient tree jade statue came from some remote island way up north, and that a tribe had worshipped it for thousands of years. He said it was miraculous, supposedly. Just keeping it at home made you healthier and calmed your mind. But our boy wasn't interested in that. He then pointed at the blue pearl, asking about it. Walker explained he bought that one from a fisherman on Luyun Island. Li Fan heard that and started thinking hard about Luyun Island, looking all mysterious. Yeah, our MC was definitely up to something. After all that, the flying boat set off, looking epic as always. The business was done. Manhwa Chamber of Commerce got a bunch of treasures, and Yin Yuzhen scored a fat stack of gold, silver, and a few nice items too. But on the way back, even though she had made bank, you could tell she was worried. Li Fan noticed and asked if she was stressed about Tianbao Tower's future. She said yes. Without a big partner like the Manhwa Chamber of Commerce, they were about to lose their best sales channel. She had no idea why the Merchant Guild pulled out so suddenly. But our MC told her not to worry. He said that when a cart reaches the mountain, there's always a way forward. Basically, don't freak out until you have to. Later that night, back at his mansion, our protagonist was in his room, checking out that glowing blue Kanghai Pearl. He was pretty happy about it, and thought this trip was only supposed to be about confirming the Star Sea Quicksand info, but he didn't expect to score such a cool treasure. He called it a nice surprise. He then stared deep into the pearl, thinking it looked like it really did have a whole ocean inside, which was wild for such a tiny thing. He wondered what made it so special, and if it really had ocean magic or something. Suddenly, he was startled by 3 heavy knocks at the door. It wasn't even dawn yet, and someone was already banging on his place. That was super weird. So Li Fan grabbed a sharp dagger and stood ready, staring at the door. He asked who was there. All serious. From outside, a shaky voice said it was Xiao Heng. Our boy dropped his dagger. He didn't expect it to be the kid. He then opened the door just a little, keeping it safe, and saw Xiao Heng standing there looking like he just got chased by a ghost. The kid, totally freaking out, said some huge trouble just happened. The secret about their sneaking onto the island had leaked out. Li Fan started grilling him, asking who spilled the secret. But Xiao Heng just shook his head and looked miserable. He said he had no clue, but now everyone on the island knew they were not from the real cultivation world, just some mortals smuggled in by Tianbao Tower. The kid looked like he was about to cry again. He said he heard the immortal master was super angry and wanted to arrest and kill all of them. Our MC, though, wasn't panicking. He just stroked his beard like some wise old man and told him not to worry. This wasn't a big deal. Xiao Heng looked totally confused, asking why Li Fan was so chill about it. Our boy turned his back and started explaining. If the immortal master actually wanted them dead, he said, they would have already lost their heads a long time ago. The fact they were hearing about it now meant someone wanted them to freak out and maybe make a mistake. He figured the real target wasn't them, but Tianbao Tower. Someone was just using them as an excuse to mess with the tower. Smart move, honestly. Next thing you know, our MC was at Tianbao Tower, talking to Yin Yuzhen. The girl was stressed out. She said she got the bad news too. All the big groups on the island figured out that the fake news about the Star Sea quicksand came from them. She was pissed because people weren't dumb. They spread the story that Tianbao Tower was running a mortal smuggling business. Our boy said what those people really wanted was just some of the Star Sea quicksand. And they had collected enough by now anyway. They should just throw out a chunk of the quicksand and let the other factions fight over it. In his opinion, they'd be at each other's throats in no time. Honestly, that sounded pretty wild, but also smart. Fast forward 3 days, and Tianbao Tower met with the island's factions and gave them a deal. The tower agreed to hand over some of the Star Sea quicksand, but only if the others traded something valuable back. Plus, the other families could split the quicksand however they wanted. But one thing was not up for debate. Tianbao Tower got a guaranteed spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. These terms were fair enough, so everyone just nodded and signed the deal. The whole mess was over. Tianbao Tower lost a few pieces of meteorite iron, but they pulled themselves out of the drama without getting wrecked. Back at the mansion, Xiao Heng looked like he could finally breathe again. He told Li Fan it was really over, and our MC just gave a chill smile. Not even a day later, all the rumors about mortal smuggling just vanished, like nothing happened. Crazy how fast things changed, bro. Time flew by, and soon, it was the big day for the spirit pool. Yin Yuzhen came to our MC looking all serious, holding out a tiny purple pill. She told him to hurry up and take the dust-leaving pill. Our boy stared at the pill, looking determined, because this was what he had been waiting for. After today, he could finally get rid of the miasma and step onto the real cultivation path. Dude was hyped. So, he swallowed the pill Yin Yuzhen gave him and followed a guide. They walked straight into the main formation at the center of Luli Island, and there were 13 people in total, mostly teenagers, and then our hero, the old guy in the group. Suddenly, the scenery glitched out. 1 second they were in the busy marketplace, then boom, they were standing in deep mountains full of green trees, rainbows, and swirling clouds. It looked like some fairyland for sure. The group started climbing a crazy long set of stone stairs up the mountain, and most of the kids weren't even breathing hard. But our MC? The poor guy was huffing and puffing, barely hanging on, lagging way behind. Yeah, everyone else had young, strong bodies, but our protagonist was definitely feeling his age. After what felt like forever, they finally got to the summit. It wasn't even that big, a little flat spot with a sea of white clouds all around, and the wind was howling. Sometimes you could see mountaintops poking out like islands in the clouds. The view was insane. Then this immortal master showed up, some big shot in blue and green robes, looking sharp. He smiled and asked what everyone thought of the view. The teenagers were starstruck. They all bowed and said, "It was beautiful, like a holy land for immortals." One kid even said his blood was racing. He was so excited. "Bro, calm down." The immortal master started telling them how, when he first came to Liuli Island, the mountain was actually way lower, not even above the clouds. He asked if any of them knew that mountains could grow taller, just like people. One kid was like, "For real? Even dead mountains can become spirits?" The immortal master just smiled and said not all mountains were the same. Some looked tall now but would never get any higher. Others started out small but might one day reach the sky. Most, though, were just stuck under the clouds forever, only there to make the big ones look even bigger. He said people were like that too. Some would go far, others would just stay ordinary. Today, he told them, they were lucky to get into the spirit pool and try to wash the miasma from their bodies. Whether they would really succeed on the immortal path depended on their own luck and effort. But for now, everyone needed to give it their all. Then one guy asked where exactly the body-purifying spirit pool was. The immortal master pointed way off into the distance and said it was right there. Another one thought he was joking, but the immortal master just looked tired and let out a long sigh. And out of nowhere, it turned into a horror movie. That man's head just flew off, blood everywhere. All the kids started screaming. Everyone dropped to the ground, begging for their lives. Yeah, nobody expected that. The immortal master stood there cold as ice, surrounded by a creepy red aura. He told them he was going to teach them another lesson. On the path of cultivation, perspective was important. They needed to know what to say and what not to say. If they messed up, well, they only had themselves to blame. Li Fan, the only one not kneeling, just bowed to the immortal master and said he understood. He then stood there, looking out at the sea of clouds, probably wondering what the hell he just got himself into. Suddenly, he walked straight to the end of the canyon, literally trying to walk in the air. And bro, he could do it! Looking at our MC, the immortal master, thought Li Fan had a super strong mind, but it was a real shame he was just too old for this kind of thing. He then told everyone that someone had already jumped into the spirit pool first. That person would get more spiritual liquid, so the rest needed to hurry up and get moving. Our MC wasted no time and rushed straight into the sea of clouds. The clouds wrapped all around him, and suddenly, he found himself floating in this pool made out of glowing white spirit liquid. Instead of drowning or freaking out, he just felt super warm and comfy, almost like a baby chilling in his mom's belly. His mind totally relaxed, and for a second, he probably thought, "Hey, this isn't so bad." Yeah, right. The nice warm feeling didn't last. Pretty soon the heat cranked up. Warm turned to hot, hot turned to absolute burning pain, and then it was just this non-stop firestorm inside his body. The poor guy was being cooked alive in there, his skin turning red, and bro, it sounded like the worst spa treatment ever. The pain was so crazy it felt like 1,000 knives cutting his soul over and over. Just endless misery. Anyone else would have started begging for death, but not our protagonist. He almost wanted to use his cheat system to reset his life, but then he told himself, no way! He wasn't giving up this time. He wanted to cultivate. He wanted to live forever. So he just gritted his teeth and took the pain. When his mind started blanking out, some deep part of him kicked in. The profound yellow pure heart mantra started running by itself. It was like his soul turned into a bare bone, refusing to break, just holding on tight as the pain kept smashing him. He was like a rock in the ocean, getting hit by wave after wave, but he just stood his ground. Meanwhile, outside the spirit pool, days went by. The immortal master thought most of the teenagers couldn't handle it and bailed out. Only 4 out of 12 made it through, but there was still one person left inside and yeah, you guessed it, it was our MC, Li Fan. Here's the problem for old folks like our boy. The older you are, the harder it is to get rid of the immortal miasma stuck in your body. The pool had to totally destroy his body and rebuild it from scratch, and that pain was something you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. The immortal master kept checking in, totally shocked that Li Fan was still surviving. He thought this guy's willpower was just insane. At his age, that man had already lasted 3 days in the spirit pool, which was unheard of. If he could really pull this off, the immortal master figured breaking into the higher levels of cultivation would be easy for him. But then more days passed, 6 days in total. He Zhengmao, the immortal master, started getting anxious because the special materials fueling the spirit pool were running out. But damn, 3 more days passed again, and this man is getting bored by now. He told himself, if the formation failed, it was just bad luck for the kid and had nothing to do with him. But then he decided, you know what? He'd make a bet and used his own secret stash to keep the pool running a bit longer. He really wanted to see if our MC could make it. 2 more days passed. The spirit pool glowed super bright, and finally, after 11 days, Li Fan climbed out. And bro, he looked way younger, with long black hair flowing and a chill blue aura around him. The immortal master was so happy, he laughed and congratulated Li Fan, telling him the chains were broken. Now he had a shot at a long life. Our MC was just standing there with a big old question mark on his face, super confused. Why was this immortal master suddenly being so nice to him? A Zheng Mao explained that Li Fan had actually lasted a full 11 days inside, and he even had to use up extra resources to keep him alive. Our boy was shocked. He had no idea it was that long. Then our boy peeked at his system stats. And, what the hell? His physical age limit had blasted past 100. His mental age limit was even more nuts. Over 2,000 years. Dude could probably outlive everyone's grandkids at this rate. The immortal master kept talking, explaining all the crazy stuff that happened on the 9th day, but our hero was too busy staring at his status screen. He noticed his profound yellow pure heart mantra had changed into something called the profound yellow heart refining mantra, but he decided he'd figure that out later. He Zheng Mao then gave Li Fan 2 things, a book called The 5 Spirits Qi Sensing Method and a small talisman. He told him that after getting rid of the miasma, the next step was to sense spiritual energy and start drawing qi into the body. If he could do that, he'd make it into the qi refining stage, which is basically the first real level of a cultivator. The book would help him get started, and the talisman would keep him safe from getting infected with miasma again for about 5 years, anyway. He said that once Li Fan broke through, he should come find him on the island, and he'd take him to the local branch of the super big Immortal Alliance. Not bad, right? Once all the instructions were done, our MC bowed and took his leave. The Immortal Master watched him go, then decided it was time to find a new mountain to sit on. Apparently, his cultivation method worked by camping out on mountaintops and soaking up all the good luck from the land. The more the mountain grew, the more his own power would grow too. Plus, if he helped young people like Li Fan, and they got stronger, he'd get a bonus from the universe. So no wonder he was being so generous. Back at his place, our boy wasted no time. He got to work, sitting cross-legged and testing out his new heart-refining mantra. He was shocked. Before, it took him ages to calm his mind. But now, with this new mantra, he was calm in seconds and could actually feel his spirit getting stronger every moment. It felt way better than the old method. But our MC was also confused. Why did his pure heart mantra suddenly upgrade? Were these 2 methods supposed to be compatible? Usually, you couldn't practice 2 immortal methods together, so what was going on? Li Fan was feeling pretty good about himself. He was just 1 step away from officially being a cultivator, and he had this awesome new technique. But then, a few days later, he got a letter. Turns out, Xiao Heng had already succeeded in drawing qi into his body and was off to the big immortal island, Wangxian Island. Our MC saw the letter and nearly lost his mind. Seriously, what the hell? The kid beat him? Isn't that kid the one who said he just wanted a slow life and never touch cultivation again? But then he started wondering, how the hell did Xiao Heng get rid of the miasma and break through to qi refining so fast? It felt like it was just yesterday they were talking, and now this kid was already ahead. Our MC kept reading the letter again and again, but in the end, he just had to accept it. The facts didn't lie. Now, let's jump into Xiao Heng's big flashback. The poor guy couldn't sleep after everything went down. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw crazy stuff. An immortal master coming out of nowhere from the sky, a city burning, people screaming. His nightmares were brutal. He was so freaked out that he decided right then, if he wanted to ever sleep well again, he needed to become a cultivator. He sat up in bed, all sweaty and wide-eyed, and started taking cultivation seriously. He began to practice the profound yellow pure heart mantra. And get this, barely a month passed, and Xiao Heng had already wiped out all the miasma from his body. He started glowing with this golden energy and, while he was just lying there, managed to draw qi into his body without even trying that hard. The next day, he was feeling so great, he hugged his maidservant at home and almost crushed her to death. Dude seriously forgot he had new powers. That's when he realized. He was officially a cultivator now, and there was no going back. Immortals and mortals really did have to stay in their own lanes. But when he talked to the immortal master, the guy was so shocked because he already given all the materials to Li Fan, and he didn't have anything to form a good relationship with Xiao Heng. Anyway, Li Fan was still reading Xiao Heng's letter. The boy said he only got where he was because our MC protected him, that now he was ahead but he'd be waiting for his brother at Wangxian Island, and that he'd do anything to help if needed, even if it meant dying 10,000 times. Our MC was not happy reading that. Our protagonist was looking at the letter like, for real? This is what insane talent looks like? He was annoyed but also kind of jealous. Xiao Heng had stumbled his way into qi refining with basically no help, but our boy wasn't too bothered for long. He reminded himself, so what? He had something better. A cheat nobody else had. The Huanzhen system. With this thing, he could try again and again, and no natural genius was going to leave him in the dust. So, time to get back to business. The most important thing was to draw qi into his body. So he started reading the 5 spirits qi sensing method that Zheng Mao gave him. The book was wild. It talked about spiritual roots. In ancient times, only people with these roots could start cultivating. There were all kinds, like metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and some rare ones like thunder and darkness. Most people, they didn't have them. So cultivation was just a dream. That was pretty unfair if you ask me. But then, some crazy powerful immortal venerable came along and dropped the real talk. He said, if the heavens didn't want to make you immortal, you should just steal the chance yourself. Straight up, the guy told everyone, follow the heavens, stay mortal, defy the heavens, become immortal. Solid advice for anyone trying to break the rules. Then the book gave a quick rundown of the immortal path. Absorb spirit energy, build a foundation, make a golden core, form a nascent soul, and just keep leveling up until you're basically part of the universe. The point? To go against the logic of heaven and earth and live forever. Our MC was honestly shook. He slammed the book shut, looking like he just found out the rules were totally different than what he expected. He kept thinking about all the weird stuff he'd seen. How cultivators couldn't mix their cultivation methods, how a cultivator's death would light up a whole city, and how deadly miasma was for immortals. All of it now started making sense. He repeated that immortal venerable's line to himself, defy the logic of heaven and earth to prove eternal life, and started to feel a little inspired. He opened the book again, ready to figure out the 5 spirits qi sensing method for real. This method was something else. If a mortal got rid of the miasma but still couldn't draw qi, they could use their own 5 spirits, which meant 5 emotions, greed, fear, rage, hatred, and solipsism, as fuel. Meditate. Use those feelings to light a fire in your dantian, and eventually, you'd build your own root of heaven and earth. Once you got that, you could finally start sucking in spiritual energy and maybe become a cultivator. Some people with talent could do it in a single day. Others might take 10 years, but it was possible. So, our protagonist got to work. He sat down to meditate, closed his eyes, and tried to use those 5 emotions as fuel. The problem? Ever since he started using the profound yellow heart-refining mantra, his heart was calm as still water. The 5 spirits were basically gone. He barely had any fuel to burn. So, he kept trying, day after day, and then year after year. He was stuck like this for 3 whole years, just meditating with almost no progress. Yeah, 3 years, bro. Talk about being patient. After a while, our MC got so bored staying inside, he decided to take a walk around Liuli Island. As he strolled down the street, someone called out to him from behind. He turned around and saw Zhang Haobo, the captain of the Kang Yuan. The guy was grinning and came up to say hi. He hadn't seen our MC in years. He started bragging about how business was booming, the fleet was making mad profits, and more young people wanted to join up. But then he got serious. He told our MC that he and the Kang Yuan brothers were thinking about leaving Liuli Island. That was a shocker, so our boy asked why. Zhang Haobo explained that things at sea were getting weird. Every time they put out the nets, they were pulling up thousands of fish, like all the fish in the sea were running away from something. The reefs around the island were suddenly showing up in places they'd never seen before, and the water levels were acting strange. But here's the creepiest part. For the past 3 years, there hadn't been a single wind disaster. Not on Liuli Island, not anywhere in the Kongyun Sea. Normally, there'd be several every year. Now, 0. Most people thought this was a good thing, saying it was the Immortal Master's protection, but Zhang Haobo and his crew were seriously worried. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Something big was coming, and they could feel it. Our MC tried to calm him down, saying the island was protected by a grand formation and had Immortal Master Zheng Mao watching over it. He told Zhang Haobo not to rush into leaving and to think it over carefully. The man just agreed he'd talk it out with his brothers. That little break didn't last long, because our MC went right back to meditating. Another year passed, just like that. Yin Yuzhen, meanwhile, finally got strong enough to become head shopkeeper at Tianbao Tower's headquarters on Yelan Island. She sent our MC a letter with the good news, saying she'd have to stay there for a few years to settle things. And Xiao Heng? Dude just kept getting better, sending letters to check up on our MC and letting him know he'd already hit mid-chi refining stage. It was enough to make anyone salty. In the end, Zhang Haobo and some of his Kongyuan brothers decided to leave the Kongyun Sea anyway. So much for playing it safe. Back at home, our MC kept at it, meditating nonstop. He spent years like this, patient as ever, until finally one day, boom! Wisps of spiritual energy started flowing into his dantian, spreading through his whole body. He'd done it. After 7 long years in the cultivation world, our hero finally broke through and reached the chi refining stage. The second our boy reached that stage, he was hit with this insane feeling. Spiritual energy rushed all through his body, making him feel brand new. His skin lost every little wrinkle, and he looked way younger, like he had just unlocked some secret skincare hack. He felt so strong and thought he could command the energy of heaven and earth. No joke. Anyway, the book said cultivators had much longer lives than normal people, but it still wasn't as crazy as it used to be in ancient times. Pretty unfair if you asked him. The next big thing for our MC? He pulled out the cultivation scroll he put in the system, the one with the nascent soul cultivation method from Kuhong. Now that he finally made it to chi refining, he was hyped to see what secrets were inside. When he opened it, his brain got slammed with a flood of words and images. Like he was being force-fed a whole library. His brain hurt from all the info, but thanks to his way stronger soul, he got used to it pretty fast. Eventually, he figured out the basics. This new method, the 1,000 Mechanisms Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter, was from the ancient Tianji sect. Those guys believed that everything, people, mountains, the sky, had its own thoughts and aura, what they called chi mechanisms. These were super hard to spot, but sort of like how a person gives off killing intent before they attack, the world itself would sometimes show signs. If heaven wanted to kill something, the stars would shift. If the earth had killing intent, dragons and snakes might pop up from the ground. Kind of freaky, but also kind of cool. If you could sense and use these chi mechanisms, you could do insane stuff, borrow the world's power to hurt others, or even predict the future. But bro, this method was not safe. You had to take energy from everything around you, and if you messed up, that force would smack you down hard. In theory, if someone mastered it, they could become one with the universe, but the highest anyone ever got was late nascent soul. So, not exactly a happy ending. Our boy wasn't too stressed though. With his system, he felt like he could handle whatever risks popped up. Anyway, he was done chilling, and now wanted to see what Wangxian Island was actually like. So, he took a walk outside and came to see Zhao Heng, the immortal master. Xiao Heng said he felt the energy on the island and knew our MC had finally broken through, even if it took a while. He asked if our guy was ready to go to Wangxian Island. Our boy was free to leave any time, so there was no need to wait. Without wasting time, Xiao Heng grabbed our MC's arm, and suddenly they were surrounded by swirling energy floating up over the mountains and forests. He then opened a portal in the sky with a cool move, and the two of them flew right through it. The view was insane. A long beam of light shot across the sky, turning into a massive fiery orb that looked like the sun. Our MC freaked out for a second, thinking the sun split open or something, but Xiao Heng just told him to chill and keep going. They landed in this huge square filled with stone statues of all kinds of cultivators. Some looked like they were fighting, some meditating, all pretty epic. Xiao Heng explained this was the Dharma Transmission Square, built to remember the immortal venerable who once taught the Tao here. He said every Wangxian Alliance station had a place like this. Then, they stopped in front of a gigantic statue of the immortal venerable. The dude looked serious, staring into forever. Our MC learned a big rule. On Wangxian Island, you could fly, but you better not fly higher than that giant statue. If you did, the 10,000 Immortals Grand Formation would obliterate you. Even top-tier cultivators wouldn't last a second. So yeah, don't play around in the sky unless you're tired of living. Xiao Heng led our MC through a really cool green path, made of vines and plants, until they reached a quiet forest clearing. There, they found this ancient, massive mirror, the Tianxuan Mirror. Cultivators were coming and going through it, looking busy and mysterious. The legend was that this mirror used to be totally normal, just a piece of glass, until the immortal venerable taught the Tao, and the mirror got infected with some kind of spiritual will. After that, it basically became alive, it learned to cultivate, and now it was a full-on spiritual treasure. The mirror ran most of the important business for cultivators in the Alliance, but it had a bad reputation for holding grudges, so you really didn't want to tick it off or say something dumb. He then told our MC to go inside, so he stepped through the mirror. Suddenly, he was in a lonely, dark space with nothing around, no other people, no features, just pure weirdness. Inside, Xiao Heng pointed at our MC and announced that this was a new chi-refining cultivator coming to join the Alliance. Instantly, some weird voice recorded the referral, said Xiaoheng got some contribution points for it, and was out of there on island guard duty. Before leaving, he told our MC that if he had questions, he should just ask the Tianquan mirror. Our protagonist thanked him, and then stood there, all alone, waiting for something else to happen. Suddenly, the mirror asked him to register his name. He answered honestly, Li Fan. The mirror welcomed him, said he'd get 20 contribution points as a new member, and explained the rules. You could use these points to trade for cultivation methods, magic stuff, and other things. You could earn more points by handing in materials, completing tasks, or making trades. If you got stuck on a problem, you could use your points to post a bounty for help. It also said, since he was new, he could use the Tianquan mirror for free for 30 days. After that, he'd need to pay 10 contribution points every 30 days. If he wanted, he could spend more to buy his own cave house on the island. Even in the immortal world, nothing was free, bro. So this is like the money for cultivators, right? Then, as a joke, our boy wondered aloud, if he couldn't make it in the Wangxian Alliance, could he go join the Five Elders Association instead? But the mirror just left him hanging, not saying a word. Suddenly, the mirror said, if you join this Wangxian Alliance, you can't join the Five Elders group, and vice versa. If you break the rules, both sides will hunt you down together. That sounded pretty rough, but our MC was smart. He realized he never actually agreed to join anything, so he asked the mirror if he really counted as a member. Too bad for him. The mirror said that just stepping into this space, his soul instantly counted as joining, whether he liked it or not. Man, talk about a trap. Our boy pushed back, asking if he could quit the alliance and just live as a lone cultivator, as long as he didn't join the enemy group. The mirror replied that, yes, he could leave, but every little thing he got from the alliance would be forcefully taken back. It told him to think carefully before making any moves. Our boy was not loving these rules, but at least he understood the basics now. After that, he turned into question machine mode, hitting the Tianquan mirror with every question he could think of. He kept this up for who knows how long, until he finally said he was done for now. The mirror told him he could ask more questions anytime, or just poke around with his own divine sense to check out stuff. Now, here's where things got awesome. The mirror explained that this weird space could be changed however he liked, just by thinking about it. So our MC used his mind, and boom, the empty void turned into a fancy, ancient room that looked exactly like his old grand tutor's manor from back in the day. Every detail was perfect. The dude couldn't even tell it was fake. He sat at the huge wooden desk and low-key smirked. This mirror really was a top-tier treasure. Through all the Q&A, he'd learned a lot. You could trade for skills, materials, and gear just by opening the menu with your mind. But then came the bad news. Even the weakest chi refining method cost a whopping 1,000 contribution points. The jobs for beginners? They only paid 5 or 10 points each. Bro, cultivating sounded fancy, but the work was the same as being some tired old donkey. Our MC was not impressed. Suddenly, the mirror dinged him. He had a new invitation. He checked it, wondering who could possibly want to talk to him already. And boom, it was Xiaoheng. That kid sent a video message, thanked our boy for all the help back on Liuli Island, and admitted he felt guilty for leaving without saying goodbye. Turns out, most new cultivators had to grind for years just to get enough points for a basic method. But he had gotten lucky, found a bunch of treasures, and now? He was already at the peak of chi refining, way ahead of our MC, not gonna lie. He then announced he was heading to the center of Kongyun Sea, aiming for a legendary mystical object to build his Dao foundation. He warned this could take years, so he might not be back for a long time. Still, before leaving, he dropped a gift, a water-type cultivation method, perfect for this island, since water energy was everywhere here. He suggested it was best for our MC not to leave the island until he reached mid-chi refining, just in case. When he returned, he promised they'd party and drink together like old pals. Our protagonist looked at the green scroll from Xiaoheng and just smiled. The kid was miles ahead now, but he still remembered kindness from the past. That was a good sign. At least he wasn't the type to forget people just because he got stronger. But that wasn't all. Xiaoheng also gave him a piece of the supreme primal true scripture. Apparently, practicing this art let you drop your current cultivation without losing progress. Super useful if you wanted to switch methods. He remembers this cultivation name from Kuoheng, from his previous life. So, our clever MC thought up a sneaky plan. He could use the water method now, then dump it and leave the island later to practice his riskier, ancient golden chapter method. Just needed to be careful not to let the mirror notice anything weird, since it was always watching. He sat down and got to work, using up his last free days in the mirror's super residence to cultivate the lesser evolution water art. Immediately, he realized just how crazy overpowered the assisted cultivation mode was. As long as he spent points to be inside this mirror, this thing would crank up the spiritual energy around him to unreal levels. Like, he was training inside a legendary paradise. Plus, it boosted his mind power, everything just made sense, and his progress shot up like a rocket. Bro, cultivation like this felt so good, he almost thought he was a natural-born genius. He never wanted to stop. But of course, when time ran out, he got yanked out of this dream state. He was so annoyed it nearly drove him nuts. The regular cultivating speed felt like crawling after that. He almost used his last points to buy another day but stopped himself. With only 10 points left, he forced himself to chill. But deep down, he was hooked. This kind of treasure, he thought, should belong to him, just not yet. The mirror was the Alliance's most important treasure, so no way he could steal it right now. For now, he needed to focus on earning more points instead. Our MC figured out the trick. Everyone who used this super cultivation mode would get addicted. No wonder the Alliance had so much control over its people. It was way faster to pay for quick progress than to grind for years on your own. So all the cultivators ended up working themselves to the bone just to buy more time inside. He decided earning points was everything. Doing boring tasks would be slow, so selling rare treasures was the way to go. He had a plan. If he took out the halting steely fragment from the Taihang boat, he could probably trade it for a ton of points. And after a reset, it wouldn't even be missing from his stash. Genius move, right? But he had to be careful. To move the Taihang boat, he needed to leave the island officially, so nobody would get suspicious. Plus, the mirror could see everything on the island, so he had to act normal unless he wanted some big-shot cultivator to notice him. He remembered, even his system, which basically some kind of illusion powers, needed his control, and if a true expert looked into his mind, he'd be in serious trouble. Rule number 1, stay cautious. Just then, he spotted a mission that was perfect for him, a commission to collect Liuli pearls from Liuli Island. He needed to grab at least 20 pearls, and the reward changed depending on how good they were. He grinned. This was the perfect excuse to go back, handle his business, and play it safe. Back on Liuli Island, he didn't want to risk anything with the Taihang boat, so he dropped 5 points to buy the smallest storage ring as a cover. Then he used another point to activate the teleportation, and headed out. Once he landed, he went to visit Steward Qian at the Tide Manor, who handled the island's finances, and told him to go fetch as many Liuli pearls as possible. He wanted a big haul. The man bowed and ran off, calling him Immortal Master. Hey, our boy was living the life now. Steward Qian then handed him a red pouch and nervously explained they only had 23 pearls left. Apparently, overfishing had made the Liuli fish super rare, and they'd need to wait a year to get more. Our MC just nodded, acting all understanding, but you know he was already making plans. He returned to his mansion on this island, where he released the Taihang boat in private. Moving quickly, he grabbed all the gold, silver, and, most importantly, the halting stele fragment. Then he hustled back to the teleportation platform, ready to return to Wangxian Island and make some serious trades. Just as he was about to teleport, someone called out to him. "Little friend, please stay a moment." Bro, it was Immortal Master Zheng Mao. Our boy froze up, shocked and totally caught off guard. Master Zheng Mao just told him not to freak out and asked if he might be interested in guarding an island. Yeah, you heard that right. But don't get it twisted. He wasn't talking about Liuli Island. Nah, he meant Taiyan Island, just to the west. Zheng Mao explained that his buddy, the current guardian of Taiyan, hit a big wall in his cultivation and wanted to go off looking for lucky chances. Problem: the guy couldn't just leave his post. So he needed someone to fill in for a while. And since Li Fan showed up on Liuli Island, Zheng Mao thought, why not ask this dude? Li Fan, not dumb for a second, pointed out that guarding an island usually needed someone at the foundation establishment stage, which was way above where he was at. He was just early chi refining, basically rookie level. How could he even do this job? The man smirked and said, chill, it wasn't an official position. His friend would just hand out a temporary commission, and our boy would fill in for a bit. Taiyan wasn't even that big, unlike Liuli with its giant sky protection formation, so a chi refining guy could hold down the fort for now. Of course, since he was doing the referring, he'd get a nice cut of the reward too. Dude never forgot his own pockets, huh? Li Fan, always the planner, asked about the rules. How many days could he bail on the job at a time? Zheng Mao told him the formation cycled every 5 days, so if Li Fan left, He needed to be back within 5 days. Plus, he could only go out 3 times a year max. Not a bad deal, 15 days of freedom per year, and the rest of the time, just chilling and guarding the island. Then Zheng Mao explained the best part. Every month, after Li Fan got his contribution points, he could exchange them with the Tianshuan mirror for 5 days of assisted cultivation. And those 5 days? That could be better than 6 months of regular grinding. Now that was tempting. In the end, our boy agreed to the job, but said he had to report back to Wangxian Island first and turn in his current mission. Zheng Mao was cool with it, told him to take care of business, and said he'd come find him on Tian Island once everything was ready. So, our protagonist took off for Wangxian Island, went straight to the Tianshuan mirror, and handed over his Liuli pearls for the mission. Turns out, the pearls were just average this time, so he only got 21 contribution points. Not the best, but it added up. Next, he dumped out a bunch of gold and silver, plus a glowing halting stele fragment to exchange for contribution points. The mirror buzzed and told him gold and silver gave him 236 points. But that mystical fragment? That thing was the jackpot. 1,980 points just for one piece. Our guy went from broke to loaded overnight. He didn't go on a crazy shopping spree yet, though. He had worries. So he asked the Tianshuan mirror if any disasters were about to hit the Kongyun Sea. The mirror told him not to stress. Everything was normal, and there wouldn't be any major disasters for 10 years. That was good news, at least. Then he asked about the Luli pill. The mirror explained it was an extra pill made from Luli fish, great for chi refining cultivators to form a clear chi sea. Plus it boosted cultivation speed and stacked with assisted cultivation. The price for one pill bounced between 6 and 9 contribution points. Our MC saw the opportunity and bought 350 Liuli pills at once, blowing 2,100 contribution points like a boss. He remembered that Liuli fish were almost gone from Liuli Island, so the price gonna rise up soon for these pills. Then he told the Tianshuan mirror this important news. The mirror tossed him a single contribution point as a reward. 1 point. That was kinda lame for such hot info. He wondered if the mirror was judging him for being greedy and trying to corner the market. But then things got wild. After he gave the tip, the price of Liuli pills shot up hard, from 6 to 9, and then all the way up to 12 points each. Some people were losing their minds, paying way too much. Li Fan saw his chance and dumped all 350 pills back to the Tianshuan mirror, scoring 3,500 points at the high price. He was not greedy, just smart. After all that, his total contribution points were a sweet 3,629. Bro was trading shares inside a cultivation world. Of course, once everyone calmed down, they realized Liuli pills weren't worth that much, and the price dropped back to 8 points per pill. Li Fan bought back 100 pills for himself at the normal price, basically getting them for free and pocketing a 600-point profit. That's how you play the system, bro. With all that fresh cash, our dude went nuts. He bought every scroll and tool he could find. Stuff about formations, alchemy, refining, treasure guides, robes, talismans, the works. If it looked useful, he grabbed it. By the time he was done, his points dropped down to 346, but his storage ring was packed. Then he took a Liuli pill, turned on assisted cultivation mode, and started practicing the lesser evolution water art. Spiritual energy just flooded into him. He finally felt what it was like to level up like a genius. After just 5 days, he broke through all the way to the peak of the mid-chi refining stage. No setbacks, all smooth sailing. The feeling? Insane. Just as he was enjoying himself, he got a visit request from Zheng Mao. Not wanting to get exposed, Li Fan slapped on a concealment talisman to hide his real cultivation before letting the guy in. Zheng Mao showed up, all smiles, and handed over a weird little white token. He said next, he'd introduce him to the Tian Island Guardian to officially accept the mission, but told him not to talk too much. Just let Zheng Mao handle things. Then he handed him a talisman. Li Fan's eyes went wide. He realized it was an aura-amplifying talisman, the exact opposite of the concealment talisman he just bought. This one made him look way stronger, like a foundation establishment expert. Our boy immediately figured out the scam. Zheng Mao wanted him to pretend to be a much higher-level cultivator and take the temp guardian gig, while he pocketed the pay difference. All that talk about chi refining being enough? Yeah, that was a total lie. RMC wasn't happy about being played, but Zheng Mao's cultivation was way higher, so he didn't dare argue. He just put on the talisman and got ready to meet the real guardian. So, Li Fan and Zheng Mao met up with Zhou Qinggang, the big boss of Tian Island. Thanks to the talisman, Li Fan looked legit, and Zhou Qinggang was totally satisfied. The guy handed Zheng Mao the official commission, substitute guardian, 800 contribution points per year. Then Zheng Mao passed the job straight to Li Fan. But thank God this man has a brain, so he didn't take too much point for himself. So our protagonist just sucked it up and took the job. Zheng Mao then gave him a green guardian token and told him to keep it safe. Now it was official. Li Fan followed Zheng Mao to the Taiyan Island Protection Grand Formation. But when he saw it, bro, this was not some legendary fortress. It was just a regular-looking city, busy and crowded, with a weak blue shield floating overhead. Not like Liuli Island at all. It looked safe enough, but our guy was totally thrown off by how the people here looked like zombies. What the hell is happening right now? Seeing how shocked our boy was, Zheng Mao told him that these people were not human. They were actually Taiyan Island's specialty, Taiyan fruits. He said these fruits lived, worked, got married, had kids, and acted just like real humans inside the city, which was actually a formation. And get this, when a Taiyan fruit matured, if a foundation establishment or lower cultivator ate it, they could live 5 years longer. Not bad for just one bite, but it only worked once for each person. Now, the guardian's job? Every year, he had to hand over 30 of these fruits. Anything extra, he could keep for himself. He said it was a pretty sweet deal. Taiyan fruits sold for 50 to 100 contribution points each. On average, the guardian could save 2 fruits every year, and with the pay, it was actually a great gig. Our MC was surprised. He didn't know being the boss here meant racking up so much profit. Li Fan gave a polite thank you, calling him senior, and Zheng Mao just smiled, saying it was nothing and he should support his junior. He added that if our protagonist managed to get stronger in the future, helping him out today wouldn't be a waste. But bro, it was all a little too friendly. Suddenly, things went dark. Zheng Mao called out that Li Fan already broken through to mid-chi refining. Our boy got creeped out and had to explain real quick that he got help from Xiao Heng, who left him a water cultivation method right before he left. He said this method fit him well, and he just broke through a few days ago. Zheng Mao just gave a sly little smirk and said, "Wow, Li Fan was really careful, even using a concealment talisman. If his own cultivation method wasn't special, he wouldn't have noticed at all." He said careful people don't make big mistakes. But he was most surprised about Li Fan's friendship with Xiao Heng, who was apparently a genius, about to hit foundation establishment, even though he started just a few years ago. He explained Xiao Heng could probably reach Golden Core, maybe even Nascent Soul. He told Li Fan this friendship was a huge stroke of luck. But our boy played along, saying meeting Zheng Mao was lucky too. Sometimes, you just have to play the game, right? Zheng Mao just laughed and said, "Perfect timing, a Taiyan fruit matured." So now the real show started. He's gonna show how to harvest this fruit. They then walked into some temple and saw a group of pale, empty-looking people kneeling on the floor. The energy grew stronger, and one old man, who looked dead, began to glow with a red, mystical energy. Li Fan stared at the corpse. In his head, he thought the smell was strange. Was this the mature fruit? The scent got stronger and stronger, and Zheng Mao just reached out and pressed his finger to the old man's forehead. The guy's body started shaking, and then, bro, this was wild. He shriveled up and turned into a glowing, heart-shaped fruit, pulsing with red energy. The other pale people just sat there, totally empty, then walked out of the temple. Zheng Mao told Li Fan to go ahead and eat the fruit. Holding it, our MC could feel red energy pulsing all around, and he thought the fruit was actually tempting him to eat it. He started feeling super hungry, and the smell got so strong, he couldn't fight it, so he just swallowed it in one go. Instantly, the hunger was gone, like he'd just eaten the best meal ever. On his system panel, he saw his physical age limit jump up by 5 years. Not bad, but, the taste was probably better if you didn't think about what it really was. Zheng Mao explained that the fruit gave you extra life, but admitted it was pretty weird looking, basically like a person. He said it was because the fruits literally changed from humans, so of course they looked human. That's when it hit our boy. He just ate a person. The realization made him go pale and start sweating. Zheng Mao tried to brush it off, saying the Taiyan fruit was technically a fruit, not a human. He explained, the whole thing started 500 years ago. Back then, Taiyan Island was totally normal, but suddenly, all the mortals on the island disappeared. When people sailed over to check, none of them came back. The island guardian, who was already at Golden Core, so way stronger than your average guy, went to see for himself and found a creepy forest growing in the city, packed with trees that had fruits with human faces. Whenever the wind blew, these faces would smile at you. Yeah, That's nightmare fuel right there. Nobody could explain what happened. Some big shots came to investigate, but nobody knows what answers they found. Eventually, they chopped down all the creepy trees, rebuilt the city, and set up a formation to keep everything under control. And those human-faced fruits? They just kept living inside the formation, acting out their weird, fake human lives. Li Fan had to ask, wasn't this basically just eating people? But Zheng Mao told him, nah, they had no real thoughts, just instincts, maybe a few leftover memories from when they were human or whatever. He looked almost smug about it. But our protagonist was not buying it. He was sweating, and you could tell he was seriously creeped out. But in his mind, he realized none of that mattered anymore. Once cultivators found out these fruits could extend their life, nobody cared whether they were people or not. Even if they were real humans, as long as eating them gave extra years, there was no way they'd avoid being eaten. The immortal world was cold, dude. After that, he settled into his new job as Taiyan Island's not-so-official guardian. Honestly, it was pretty chill. He had tons of time to focus on his cultivation. He learned some basic spells, then started practicing the 1,000 Mechanisms Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter. Bro, this ancient Tianji sect method was insanely complicated, nothing like the water art he'd used before. It was like trying to read a book in a language nobody spoke anymore. A whole year went by, and our boy barely got the basics down. But at least when he went back to Wangxian Island, he got paid 800 contribution points for being the substitute guardian. He used those points to buy the late Qi refining part of the water art, and then dove into assisted cultivation mode again. After another 5 days of that, he could tell he was almost at late Qi refining. Yeah, our dude was making real progress. After cultivating, Li Fan still had this temporary guardian gig to finish, so he had to drag himself back to Taiyan Island. Once he was back, he sat at a table, staring hard at this fat book called Miscellaneous Records of Cultivation. He started thinking about all this cultivation stuff. He wondered if things like bottleneck and heavenly calamity meant he was just one step away from leveling up his powers. But of course, nothing in his life was ever that simple. The book explained that this bottleneck problem wasn't something a person could just grind away at. Nope, he needed to find some hidden chance from the heavens if he wanted to get past it. The existence of this bottleneck is like a calamity sent down by the heavens to obstruct cultivators' cultivation. Thus, cultivators also call it the heavenly calamity. So, our MC tried meditating and working on his skills, but he knew he couldn't just force his way through. He decided to put aside his lesser evolution water art for now and switch to practicing something way harder. The 1,000 Mechanisms Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter. He got to the intro level of this new technique and figured he could start on the second layer. Supposedly, if he finished that, he would get some epic divine ability called the Discernment of Mechanism. But, of course, this new skill was insanely confusing. It mixed in all sorts of ancient wisdom and mysterious stuff. After a whole year of hard work, our boy realized he was making almost zero progress. Man, that had to hurt. Not one to quit easily. Now, our hero traveled to Wangxian Island to cash in some rewards. He traded them for information and insights that might help him understand this crazy old technique. Then he used a magical mirror called the Tianshuan Mirror to get even more tips. Suddenly, everything just clicked. It was like someone had dumped a bucket of enlightenment over his head. All those confusing parts finally made sense. Suddenly, our MC raced back to Taiyan Island and locked himself into cultivation mode. This time, nothing could stop him. He totally got into the zone, and time just seemed to disappear. After that, a golden, misty energy popped up inside him. He finally mastered the second layer of the Jade Cosmos skill. Now, our protagonist was feeling himself. He said he had unlocked this sick new power, Discernment of Mechanism. He wanted to test it out and see the Qi mechanism of heaven and earth. He looked up at the sky, and suddenly, things got weird. Daylight disappeared, the sky turned dark and ominous, and the sun was hiding behind creepy clouds. Our boy was seriously confused. He tried using his new power again, but the result was just as freaky. Taiyan Island was covered in darkness, like some kind of underworld. He was not having a good time. Then, he whipped out a water mirror technique to double-check what was up. Looking into that mirror, he saw his own shocked face staring back at him. Everything was just getting more and more suspicious. He started wondering if there was something wrong with his cultivation method, or maybe the world outside had gone nuts. Suddenly, he figured it was too risky to stay, because he's on the inside of the island protection, Grand Formation, and Taiyan Island is located in the central region of the Kongyun Sea. That is the sphere of influence of the Wangxian Alliance. It could cause such dense death qi to generate around him. He tried to use the teleportation formation to get out of there, but nothing happened. Not good, man. Then he decided to go to Wangxian Island to avoid disaster, but there is no response from the teleportation formation. He grabbed a communication talisman and tried to call for help, asking if anyone could hear him. Of course, radio silence. That's when our hero realized for sure something was seriously wrong, and he can't stay at Taiyan Island if he doesn't want to die. He decided he had to get to Wangxian Island, the only place that seemed safe, but it would take months to travel by flying, and he was worried about the dangerous vibes outside. Luckily, he had a stash of spirit stones from his last shopping spree, so he had some options. After that, Li Fan checked the sea and instantly got a bad feeling. The ocean looked calm, but he just knew the world was full of danger. If he left the island's protection, he was probably dead meat. So, he thought, why not ask the mortals on the island for some intel? That was actually a smart move for once. Inside the manor, a bunch of mortals were kneeling before him, crying out for help. They were desperate, begging the immortal master to save them. Our boy, with his glowing blue eyes, told them to spit it out and explain what was happening. The old leader of the mortals started crying even harder. He said the island hadn't had rain for 6 months, and they were basically out of food and fresh water. If things kept going like this, everyone was going to die of hunger. Our boy was shocked. They really hadn't had any rain for that long? The old guy explained it got even worse. All the nearby fish were gone, and the fishing fleets that went out to sea never came back. People were literally dying everywhere. It was a full-on disaster. Then, our boy looked at the mortals, and honestly, he was pretty savage. He asked why none of them looked any skinnier if they were all about to starve. The old leader started sweating bullets, begging for mercy. But our MC just got colder and said he had already checked the kitchen. So, what did they have to say for themselves? Then, with a blast of blue energy, our MC took out the island lord, apparently. He turned to everyone else in the manor and announced that the guy he just blasted was the island lord, and now he wanted all the stewards to come see him, right now. A bunch of stewards showed up next, scared out of their minds, and after a lot of crying and complaining, Li Fan finally pieced together what had happened during his year of hiding. The drought started half a year ago, and the fresh water dried up. At first, they could still catch fish, but as the weather got hotter and hotter, no fish could be caught around the island anymore. The fleets that went out just vanished, and the famine hit hard. In 1 month, 1/3 of the island's population died. Brutal. Then, our boy realized if he'd stayed in seclusion just a little longer and did nothing, there might not have been anyone left alive to save. Good thing he got out when he did. So, he pulled out this magic tie-hang boat he had stashed with grain. Because of the formation magic in the boat, the grain wasn't spoiled at all. He dumped all the grain out for the mortals, and everyone hit the ground, bowing and thanking him like crazy. At least for now, he had enough grain to keep what was left of the population alive for a few months, if they went easy on it. Not stopping there, half a month later he got down and drew a big glowing circle on their hot water. He built a basic formation to clean seawater so people could actually drink it. With new food and water, the mortals finally started to recover. After finishing his handmade formation, he figured he was finally starting to get this whole formation thing. But of course, he noticed the island's big protective barrier, the Grand Formation, was breaking down fast. Red lightning was cracking it, and things outside were getting wild. Our boy realized he was in trouble either way. If he stayed, the formation would shatter and he'd be toast. If he left, the chaos outside would probably kill him faster. He looked up at the sky, wondering if the heavens themselves were trying to wipe him out. But hey, at least he had done his job as a guardian. He'd saved the mortals. Even though he didn't want to, he figured he had no other choice but to try something desperate. Suddenly, he realized something. The deadly spiritual energy outside didn't seem to target mortals. The fishermen had died because they ran out of food and water, not because of the crazy energy. So, our MC came up with a risky plan. If he used the supreme primal true scripture to basically dump all his magic and pretend to be immortal, then took the Tai-Hang boat, he might just sneak his way to Wangxian Island and survive. Without waiting any longer, Li Fan was sitting in his cave, totally in the meditation zone. He had his eyes shut, looking super focused, and he was working on not one, but 2 different cultivation tricks. He thought about it. One was called the Lesser Evolution Water Art. The other was the 1,000 Mechanisms, Jade Cosmos, Golden Chapter. He figured one was the new style, and the other was the old school method. But things were never simple for our MC. He knew the new law basically sucked energy from heaven and earth, which made everything around him super salty about it. He could feel that the whole world was throwing out layers and layers of killing intent, just trying to wipe out any cultivator who used the new way. Not exactly a warm welcome. Then, our protagonist wondered if maybe, just maybe, if he got rid of only the new law but kept his old law skills, the killing intent might chill out a little. So he started to get rid of the water energy he got from the Lesser Evolution Water Art. He watched it melt away, turning into this pure, clean energy inside his Dantian. After he finished, he checked himself, still feeling fine. He was honestly impressed, thinking the Supreme Primal True Scripture was pretty dang awesome. Even better, he realized the world's killing intent got weaker after he dropped the new law. But, unlucky for him, he still had the 1,000 Mechanisms Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter running, which was also a new law. So, the anger from heaven and earth didn't go away completely. He figured he had to do something drastic and decided to wipe out all his cultivation, even the old stuff. Then our boy started to go all in, because he had no choice left. He started glowing with this golden fire, gathering another stream of pure energy in his dantian, both energies mixed together. When he checked his realm, he was basically immortal now, but he didn't sweat it. He thought as long as he could get back to Wangxian Island, he could easily level up again. With that thought, our boy grabbed his Taihang boat and rolled out of Taiyan Island's big shiny protection bubble. He flew into the sky, which was now wild, with burning orange-red energy everywhere. He was just a regular dude now, so all that crazy spiritual energy ignored him. He zipped over dead islands, nothing but bones, and silence everywhere. Then, 3 months later, he finally reached where Wangxian Island was supposed to be. He checked his map over and over, thinking he had to be seeing things. But nope, Wangxian Island was gone. In its place was this massive, swirling black hole. Water from all sides was rushing in, but the second it touched the edge, it just vanished, steaming away. The air above was so hot, it looked totally warped. Suddenly, the boat smashed into something invisible and stopped with a huge jolt. Good thing the protection formation was still working, or this would have been our MC's final flight. Even so, he coughed up a little blood. That crash actually helped him focus, though. Looking ahead, he saw the mainland. So close yet so far. He tried to fly forward, but it was like running into a wall. There was an invisible barrier totally blocking the way. The system even spelled it out. Allowed in, not allowed out. Our guy gave a sarcastic grin and thought he was now a turtle stuck in a jar. Couldn't go anywhere. Before he did anything drastic, he figured he should get more info. So, he wandered around the Kongyun Sea. He checked out Yilan Island, where that girl Yin Yuzhen used to be, but it was just ruins and death. Same deal. At Liuli Island, He Zhenghao was missing. Corpses everywhere, nothing alive. Every island was a graveyard. Sometimes he'd find another survivor, but they were all totally out of their minds, ranting about ghosts and looking like they hadn't slept in years. Finally, he went back to Taiyan Island. For the first time in ages, he felt some real life. The mortals there were still living, doing their thing, looking healthy for once. They had no clue what kind of nightmare was happening outside their little bubble. In the middle of the village, he found a shrine where people were burning incense and praying to a statue that looked suspiciously like him. They called him their immortal master, begging him for good weather and food every year. Our MC was just standing there, thinking he didn't even know when they built that temple. Then, our boy decided right there that he'd protect them as long as he could, even if it wasn't going to be easy. With all the killing intent in the world, looking after mortals was like swimming upstream. But man, things just kept getting harder. It never rained, not for 1, 2, or even 3 years. The sea level started dropping, more and more land appeared, and even the formation he made to clean seawater was barely keeping up. It was getting really tough for everyone. The only good news is, perhaps because almost all the cultivators in the Kongyun Sea had bitten the dust, the killing intent started to fade away. Our MC was able to cultivate again, grinding his way back to the mid-chi refining stage. That was a small win. Still, our boy was realistic. He thought, when he couldn't protect the mortals anymore, he'd just leave for his backup plan. But then, he noticed something weird. When he pushed his discernment of mechanism to the limit, he realized that everyone's life force on Taiyan Island was linked to him, but not directly to him, more like to something he carried. He checked it out and there it was, the Kanghai Pearl, glowing deep blue with mist swirling around it. It looked way more powerful than the first time he saw it years ago. He felt like an entire ocean was growing inside that thing. That's when it hit him. He realized, when one vast ocean dies, a new vast ocean is born. Wild, right? So, our hero took his Taihang boat up super high into the sky to see what the Kongyun Sea looked like now. All he could see was endless, cracked land, and mountain ranges everywhere. The seabed was totally showing, and he suddenly realized that all the old islands were just mountain peaks this whole time. Then, he remembered something an old buddy, Ko Hong, once said, "If you get out, come find me in Lingtian City, in the Kongyun mountain range." Our boy put 2 and 2 together and started laughing to himself. The Kongyun Sea and the Kongyun Mountain, they were in the same place all along. Anyway, now, our hero has started thinking about his past life. He said that when he was about to die back then, he broke through some crazy formation and entered the cultivation world for the first time. Back then, what he saw was just endless mountains. But this time around, when he got to the cultivation world in this life, it was all ocean. Bro, he figured maybe it was just the teleportation spot messing with him, so he never really thought about it much. But now, standing on the dry, cracked seabed with those undersea mountains poking up, he finally got it. The place he popped out last life and this life was actually the same spot. He realized the sea and the mountains were just different versions, depending on the year. He did some mental math and figured out the timeline. Last life, he arrived in anchor year 65, and this life was anchor year 20. That's 45 years apart. So, one time he met the ocean, another time he saw mountains. Classic cosmic prank. Our protagonist started feeling a little salty. He thought if he had paid more attention to all the various anomalies Zhang Haobo warned about earlier, maybe he could have guessed this huge world-changing event was coming. But now, knowing that the Kongyun Sea and the Kongyun Mountains were the same place, he finally felt a little hope that this disaster might actually end. He remembered that back in anchor year 50, his old buddy Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi had escaped to some city in the Kongyun mountain range. That probably meant the drought was over before then, and the sea had already turned into mountains. And right now, it is anchor year 34. So, he thought, not long to go, just gotta hang on. Our boy floated above Taeyan Island, which was looking super sketchy under all that red haze. He thought waiting without hope was the worst thing ever. But now that he knew how things would turn out, all this burning disaster didn't seem so scary anymore. He calmed down and went back to the island. Then our boy didn't waste time. He used his magic voice to talk to everyone on the island, telling them that this disaster would pass. The mortals down below totally lost it. They were so happy, and they started hoping for life again. But Li Fan wasn't done yet. He went back to meditating and pulled out the Kanghai Pearl. He looked at it and wondered if their chance for survival was hiding inside. He poured his divine sense into the pearl, but it vanished right away. Our guy frowned, realizing that cracking this thing wasn't going to be easy. The Tianxuan mirror wasn't around to help, so he was stuck fumbling by himself. Our MC tried everything, pushing in spiritual energy, using his divine sense, even smacking it with some external force. And finally, the old blood drop trick. Nothing worked. The Kanghai Pearl just sat there like a stubborn rock. Then, he suddenly remembered the 1,000 Mechanisms Jade Cosmos, Golden Chapter. That thing had tricks for sensing and refining the energy of spiritual objects. So, he fired up his discernment of mechanism ability and eyeballed the pearl. Right away, he saw this deep blue light swirling around the pearl. It looked ancient and crazy powerful, but totally silent, like it was sleeping. If he didn't use that special ability, he said he never would have been able to see its true energy. He focused super hard, and then bam! Suddenly, he felt his body disappear. Our poor guy was now floating way up high, looking down at a giant burning red ocean with two massive fiery eyes staring from the sky. Those eyes watched as the ocean started dying. Our MC realized this was the will of heaven and earth, just out here burning up the sea, and there was nothing the sea could do. Heaven creates and destroys? Bro, that's the Tao. But then, he noticed that the ocean refused to give up. When one ocean died, a new one was born. That's some next-level stubbornness. All of a sudden, Li Fan snapped back to reality, feeling super weak. He nearly couldn't stand, and he found even more white hair on his head and wrinkles on his face. Bro was aging like crazy. He checked his Huanjin system panel and almost lost it. In that one moment, his physical age jumped from 54 to 89. It was like he lived 35 years in a single blink. He realized that, even in the old days, barely anyone used this kind of cultivation method, probably because it burned up his life super fast. He thought that if he hadn't stopped himself, he might have been completely taken over by the will of the ocean. Our hero figured he was definitely doing something wrong. He said you can't just brute force a mystical object of heaven and earth. Humans are tiny compared to the ocean, bro. He needed another way. Days went by, but he still couldn't figure out how to use the Kanghai Pearl. Meanwhile, it just kept getting hotter and hotter outside, like the world was trying to roast everything for good. The mortals on the island were so weak, they couldn't even pray anymore. If things kept going like this, they'd all be gone before the drought ended. And yeah, after that our boy started feeling desperate, with his mind full of random worries. To calm himself down, he used an old trick, the profound yellow heart refining mantra. He hadn't really trained it in a long time, since it didn't actually help him get stronger, but it always ran in the background a little. This time, when he activated it, all his fear, anger, and bad vibes melted away. All that negativity just made his Tao heart stronger. He got calmer and clearer, and suddenly, he felt something. He thought maybe his shot at a breakthrough was in the Kanghai Pearl. Our boy realized he'd been stuck at the mid-chi refining level for years, with no way to move forward. But now, after all this, he finally felt the opportunity was here. It was all about truly understanding and controlling the Kanghai Pearl with his mind. He knew this was risky, but he figured big risks come with big rewards. He sensed that if he used the heart-refining mantra and the 1,000 Mechanisms Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter together, he could resist getting swallowed up by the will of the ocean. Next thing you know, his mind drifted off, and it was like he turned into the ocean itself, watching time fly. Sunrises, sunsets, storms, rain, all happening at super speed. Just a single thought seemed to last hundreds of years. His mind started getting super old and ancient feeling, but then a cool, clear energy washed over him, snapping him back to himself. At that point, he was still burning through his life way faster than normal, and all his human emotions felt super light and far away. But now, he could finally use a little bit of the Kanghai Pearl's power. Then, his divine sense got a crazy upgrade. It was thousands of times stronger. With just a thought, he could cover all of Taiyan Island, and then his senses spread out even further, like ripples. He checked out all the dead islands, saw a volcano coming back to life, and even noticed a few other cultivators hiding in random corners. He found a bunch of secrets too, but he said none of that had anything to do with him now. Pulling his power back, our MC used the Kanghai Pearl to grab every last drop of water vapor in the whole Kongyun Sea and made it rain on Taiyan Island. Of course, the survivors went totally nuts with happiness, crying in the rain, and thanking the immortal master for saving them. Li Fan set it up so rain would fall every half-month, making sure the mortals could live on. After that, our protagonist basically turned into Zen mode. He just sat there, like he was the ocean itself, quietly watching the world and feeling the flow between heaven and earth. Time stopped mattering. 1 year, 2 years, it was all the same. He kept learning more and more just by observing. He thought the killing intent in the world had faded over time, but now he realized that wasn't true. The killing intent from heaven and earth was still there, just hidden. He finally understood. Cultivators mess with the balance of the world, so the heavens naturally want to wipe them out. But heaven doesn't do it directly. Their mission is to exterminate the cultivators who go against the natural order. Suddenly, our hero's mind got hit with a flood of new info. He realized there were all kinds of these, spirits of heaven and earth, not just the fire one. These spirits had no feelings, no thoughts. They just acted on instinct, following the world's rules, and if a cultivator got in their way, bro, it was like a sheep walking into a butcher shop. That's how little they cared. If one of these spirits set its sights on you, it was pretty much game over. But at the same time, these spirits were also a giant opportunity. If a cultivator could somehow beat or sacrifice a spirit of heaven and earth, they could jump straight into the crazy powerful Dao integration realm. It was like a cheat code, but with a death sentence attached. Now, our MC, he had wild thoughts. He looked at that fiery spirit and got these greedy ideas, thinking that if he could just eat this thing, he'd be unstoppable. His mind was like, do it, eat him, ascend to heaven, become a legend. Not gonna lie, bro sounded a little unhinged. But the problem was, the fiery spirit totally noticed him staring and turned its head, locking eyes with our poor protagonist. Instantly, the ocean inside the Kanghai Pearl started boiling, and Li Fan's spirit almost got cooked alive. He freaked out and yanked his attention away, forcing himself to chill out with his profound yellow heart-refining mantra, trying to keep all that crazy greed under control. Luckily, the big fire dude just peeped him once, decided Li Fan was small fry, and went back to his business, scorching the Kongyun Sea without a second thought. Honestly, our MC was lucky not to get deleted right there. But inside, Li Fan felt like he was going to split apart. His reason was fighting his desire, and it almost tore his soul in half. All he could do was keep running his calming mantra to protect his mind. After who knows how long, the wild greed faded, but he was still super shaken. He told himself not to poke around at that spirit of heaven and earth again. Just getting a peek at the universe's secrets and still being alive, that was already a miracle. Then, our boy realized there was a big problem. He'd stayed merged with the Kanghai Pearl for way too long, longer than any regular cultivator could handle. His body was basically an old husk at this point. All his life force burned out. If his spirit hadn't stayed linked up with the pearl, he'd have been extra dead ages ago. But he wasn't mad. He felt like he'd learned so much about how the world really worked, he could accept dying now. But of course, he wasn't planning to quit just yet. Since he was already stuck inside the pearl, our MC decided to use the time wisely, studying the flow of energy between heaven and earth. As long as he didn't try spying on that fiery spirit again, he figured he could keep going. He used the last scraps of the pearl's power to stop his body from totally falling apart. But honestly, it was like watering a dead tree. He figured he had maybe a dozen years left before he ran out completely, so he'd better make it count. Time zipped by. While he watched, the last bits of life in the Kongyun Sea faded away, except for Taiyan Island, where his protection kept a handful of mortals alive. 5 years came and went, and the whole place was nothing but dry land and death, except his little island. Then, finally, the fiery spirit of heaven and earth finished its job and faded out, sparkling into golden light. Nobody knew where it would pop up next. Our hero just stared after it, feeling kind of empty inside. His spirit was getting weaker and weaker now, to the point where he couldn't even think straight anymore. He could only stare out at the world through the Kanghai Pearl like a ghost stuck in a marble. Then, in the second year, after the red flame disappeared, a group of cultivators in green robes showed up at the Dead Sea. They started casting spells and finally, it poured rain. More cultivators showed up, and as they worked their magic, green life exploded everywhere. Trees shot up, grass spread, and in just a year, the whole place was full of mountains and forests. Again, the Kongyun Sea was now the Kongyun Mountain Range. Not long after, a big floating city appeared in the sky above the Green Mountains, and cultivators from all over started flocking there. Time kept flying. One day, at anchor year 48, a guy named Zhang Haobo, a face our MC recognized, came back to the old Kongyun Sea, now the mountains. He was looking sad, but the dude had leveled up big time. He used to be just a fisherman, but now he was a foundation establishment cultivator. By this point, Li Fan's spirit was almost gone. As his mind flashed through memories of his whole life, he felt himself slipping away. But right before he totally disappeared, his consciousness shot back into his own body. Here's where things got wild. All those years of sitting in the pearl, soaking up the secrets of heaven and earth, at the last second, the block in his cultivation just vanished. Spiritual energy rushed in, and he busted through to the late chi refining stage. And just after that, he got a notification from his system that said the simulation of his life has ended. He got to choose one of the 4 options, just like always. And right now, he chose to retain the cultivation realm. He came back to life in his youth, with a lot of knowledge that he got before this life. The next thing he knew, he was back in his normal, younger body, feeling all that spiritual energy swirling in his core. Late chi, refining stage. That miasma stuff, separating mortals from immortals, gone like it never existed. He realized the fluctuation he felt was the direct opposite of the will that used to keep people from ever reaching immortality. All those barriers cracked and vanished, and he was leveled up way earlier than in his past life. He thought this system power was straight up insane. He could understand the workings of the world so much better now, and he started to remember his past lives. He thought about Su Chengyu, a super talented guy who should have gone far, but died for no reason. Then there was Xiao Heng, a dude who seemed average but had some freaky luck and talent, and almost made it to the next big stage before dying anyway. He looked back at Zhang Haobo again. That guy was just some ordinary fisherman, but he survived, got lucky, and ended up a real cultivator. The world was just unpredictable like that. Good people died, nobody got lucky. Heaven's rules were brutal, and even the best tools, like the Tianxuan mirror, couldn't see through its secrets. Our boy figured out that new killing intent would show up in the next 10 years. And he wondered why the Manhwa Chamber of Commerce seemed to know about it in advance and pulled out early, while the other big group, the Wangxian Alliance, did nothing. Something fishy was going on there, and he made up his mind to dig into it if he got the chance. But for now, our MC knew the cultivation world was crazy dangerous, so he decided to chill and not rush in headfirst. With his new heart-refining mantra, his system was charging up way faster. He figured, this time around, he could reach the late chi refining stage way earlier than last time. He remembered that, in his last life, a major happened in the Kongyun Sea for over a decade after he reached this stage. So now, with all this foreknowledge, he could finally plan ahead. Then, in another place called Great Xian, Jieli Mountain, where the place looks rough, sharp peaks everywhere, and the sky full of clouds. There are 2 dudes climbing up. One is Erlang, rocking a straw hat and dark robes, looking like he's seen some stuff. The other guy is his buddy, Wang Xuanba, who's trailing behind and honestly looks like he'd rather be anywhere else right now. That poor guy started whining that he couldn't walk anymore since they'd been hiking all day. He wanted a break, but Erlang told him it was a bad idea to rest out here. He said the place was crawling with wild animals. There could be tigers just hiding behind a rock. But then he said not to worry, because up ahead there was a secret cave where they could chill if Wang Xuanba was really about to drop. The poor guy, still huffing and puffing, wanted to know if there were actually immortals in this mountain. The strong guy looked all serious and said he'd really seen one. No joke. But his buddy totally wasn't having it. He started going off, saying, for 5 years Erlang had been obsessed with this mountain, always running around looking for immortals, but never finding any. He figured it was time to give up on that dream, because the whole seeking immortals and asking about the Tao thing sounded fake and impossible. He suggests his strong friend should just practice martial arts like a normal person. But suddenly, Erlang shot back that poor guy was starting to sound just like his mom, always nagging. He was so annoyed, he threatened to just walk off and leave him alone if he kept it up. But then, out of nowhere, Wang Xuanba freaked out and pointed ahead, his face turning ghost white. He told his friend to see what was behind him. Both dudes looked up, and what did they see? A massive white python sliding out of the mist, its eyes glowing green and its tongue flashing purple. This thing was huge and not happy to see them. Wang Xuanba freaked out and yelled that it was a giant python. The poor guy, trying to be a hero, whipped out his sword and slashed at the snake's head. But the python was way faster. It smacked him hard and sent him flying. Meanwhile, Erlang barely dodged a bite, ending up with blood dripping down his face. and suddenly realizing they might actually die here. Dude was in deep trouble now. In that moment, our hero's mind flashed back to 5 years ago, when he'd seen some legendary immortal flying through the sky above Jieli Mountain, looking all powerful and full of spiritual energy. That memory was what kept him obsessed with finding an immortal, no matter how many trips he made into the mountains. Now, though, he was starting to think he wasn't going to find any immortals. He was just going to get eaten by a snake. While all this chaos went down, some birds, an eagle, and a crane flew by overhead. The python reared up, ready to finish the job, and lunged for our poor guy again. But then, just when things looked hopeless, the story totally flipped. Suddenly, a bunch of wild beasts showed up out of nowhere. A boar, a creepy lion thing with red glowing eyes, and a black bird of prey. All of them started attacking the giant python, turning the place into a wild animal battle royale. Erlang just stared at the madness, totally confused, while poor Wang Xuanba was still knocked out cold on the ground. He wondered what the hell was going on. Why would all these wild beasts suddenly gang up on the python? He started thinking maybe this was some kind of immortal's trick. Like, was an immortal secretly helping him out? He looked up at the sky, eyes full of hope, and called out for the immortal master, begging for help. Just then, boom! A figure in blue robes floated down from the clouds and landed on a rock, looking all calm and powerful. This was the Jieli Mountain Immortal, with long flowing hair and a chill smile. He took one look at Erlang and said that this kid wasn't bad at all. He could tell he had some special talent and a strong heart for seeking the Tao. But then the Immortal Master got all thoughtful. He said it was a shame, because he hadn't even built up his own strong foundation yet. So, he couldn't really be anyone's teacher. He figured it would be better to wait until the time was right, and then maybe bless Erlang with some big lucky chance in the future. With that, the Immortal Master rose up into the air again, glowing with blue light, and blasted off into the clouds like it was no big deal. Talk about making an exit, right? Now, let's get to the real MC, Li Fan. He started thinking that his 9 years of hard work hadn't been wasted after all, because this sneaky new move he'd made, the formless killing intent, was honestly next level. Our boy explained that since he was stuck at Late Chi refining, he'd pick this old mountain to lay low, avoiding all that nasty, mortal miasma, so it wouldn't block his path to being an immortal. Then he said that because there wasn't any spiritual energy left in this land of immortal extinction, he spent almost all his time just studying the energy patterns and laws of the dot world, trying to figure out some deep stuff. After 9 years of working his butt off, he finally managed to learn how to use the formless killing intent. This move could pretend to be the killing intent of heaven itself, and anyone it marked would get wrecked by disaster, even without Li Fan doing anything. Wild, right? He said the will of heaven controls almost every living thing. So when he targeted that white python, all the animals nearby got mind-controlled into attacking it until it died. The best part? Nobody could really tell that our boy was behind it. It was just like the world itself was making all the bad stuff happen. That's what made the move so sneaky and dangerous. Then, our MC was feeling himself. He said this skill was like a must-have tool for anyone who wanted to kill and steal in the cultivation world without getting caught. He thought ordinary cultivators wouldn't even know what hit them before it was too late. Our boy smiled, looking all calm and confident, and checked his system status. Bro was almost fully charged 99%. He said it was finally time to jump back into the real cultivation world. Then, after that, the Tai Hang boat was flying across the emerald blue Kongyun Sea, leaving this glowing trail behind. He was standing on the water, arms stretched out, feeling like he'd lived a whole lifetime since the last time he saw this place. Then he took a handful of ashes, Qian Hong's, the guy who once owned the halting steel fragment, and scattered them into the sea, letting the waves carry them away. Li Fan explained that Qian Hong had been a cultivator for almost 300 years, and now, after wandering for even longer, his soul could finally return home and be at peace. Our hero felt good about keeping that promise. On his way, our boy thought that something inside him had changed after the last wild event, but no matter how hard he checked himself, he couldn't figure out what the hell was different, so he decided to just remember it for later and move on. Then, he figured out where he was and made up his mind to visit Liuli Island first. This time, instead of flexing with his Tai Hang boat, he thought that was a bit too flashy for the rogue cultivator vibe he wanted. He just decided to ride the wind and fly there himself. It was a little slower, but our boy wasn't in any rush. He was ready to play the role of some random rogue cultivator from the Kongyun Sea who got lucky and made it to Late Chi refining stage, but couldn't figure out the next big step. To keep it real, he told himself he'd act like he wanted to join the Wangxian Alliance for help. So, Li Fan was flying through the air, hair waving behind him, looking like a mysterious drifter. But suddenly, his face changed fast. A wave of killing intent locked onto him, hard. He could feel this was no joke. The person coming after him was at least Foundation Establishment level. Our boy started to freak out, thinking that whatever was chasing him was seriously fast, and the pressure was insane. Then, he made a snap decision. He had to risk exposing his Taihang boat, because this was getting dangerous. He pushed the boat to its max speed, blasting across the water like a blue streak. But even with that, the freak chasing him was somehow getting closer. That was not good, bro. So, he pulled out his big secret move, the formless killing intent. The moment he activated it, things got creepy. He could feel, all of a sudden, like 100 eyes were watching him from the darkness. He wondered if using this on someone stronger was a bad idea, and if the will of heaven itself was about to catch him, red-handed. Luckily, he figured since he was only messing with someone one realm higher, the will of heaven just side-eyed him and then went back to sleep. Still, Li Fan was sweating. He thought if he tried this trick against anyone in the Golden Core realm, heaven would drop a spirit down just to erase him. Our boy was not about to gamble that hard. Then bam, a giant waterspout exploded out of the ocean, swirling like some crazy turquoise dragon. It spun right into the path of whoever was chasing him, trapping them for a moment. Li Fan didn't waste a second. He blasted away, trying to put as much distance as possible between him and his attacker. But wouldn't you know it, the guy broke out of the waterspout and started catching up again, even faster than before. This chase was getting way too real. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a monster alligator shark with glowing blue eyes jumped straight out of the water and swallowed the attacker whole. Li Fan probably thought that should have ended it. But no, flames shot out of the shark's mouth, and the guy, all burned and looking like hell, flew out again, still coming for our MC. As if that wasn't enough, lightning crashed down from the sky, blasting the attacker. The dude screamed and dropped from the air, wrapped in purple lightning. Honestly, it was like every disaster in the book was coming for this poor guy, but he just wouldn't stay down. Finally, our boy saw Liuli Island ahead, a round island protected by a blue, glowing barrier. He made a desperate dash for it, hoping if he could get help from a guy named He Zhenghao, he'd be safe. But as he looked back, he saw his attacker, Protector Wan, falling from the sky, totally wrecked, and screaming for He Zhenghao to come out and help kill our boy. Li Fan couldn't believe what he was seeing. He called out in shock, wondering how Protector Wan got so messed up. Then, in pure panic, he screamed for He Zhenghao and activated Huanzhen, the system that controlled his simulation. And just like that, the simulation ended, and our boy found himself back in his room, gasping for breath and covered in sweat. He thought that this was the shortest life he had ever experienced since getting the Huanzhen system. He didn't expect to almost get killed the second he stepped foot in the cultivation world, and it was even crazier that his killer was from the Wangxian Alliance. Our MC sat there, frustrated and confused. He realized the dude had come all the way from 1,000 Lai, away with only one goal, to take him out. That made no sense. Why would someone from the Wangxian Alliance hunt him down the moment he re-entered the world? He started thinking maybe it had something to do with one of his techniques or items. He checked all his stuff and soon noticed his lesser evolution water art might be the problem. This spell was inherited from the previous life's Wangxian Alliance, and apparently, it could be tracked. He realized the spell splits into different branches, and the Alliance could spot whenever a new person started using it within a huge area. Not wasting any more time, our boy immediately used his Supreme Primal True Scripture to destroy all his cultivation related to the lesser evolution water art. He dropped his level, let that energy scatter, and basically reset himself. After that, Li Fan jumped back into the cultivation world, this time without the risky spell. Sure enough, nobody came to chase him now, proving he was right. He took his time, heading towards Liuli Island again. When he reached the waters near the island, something from an old memory popped into his mind. He stopped and stared into the depths. Way down on the seabed, he saw a bunch of Liuli fish dragging dead bodies to offer to this huge, golden, bloated Liuli fish. The big boss fish slurped up the corpses, chewed them up, spit out the bones, and looked annoyed, like the food just wasn't good enough. Then our boy smirked, thinking he'd had enough of this creepy scene. With one thought, he unleashed his formless killing intent again. Instantly, all the smaller Liuli fish went nuts and started swarming the golden one. It was chaos, red-eyed fish everywhere. And pretty soon, the big golden fish got torn apart and vanished under the mass. Golden blood bubbled up to the surface. Li Fan reached out and picked up a huge, glowing Liuli pearl from the mess. He was a little disappointed it wasn't some super artifact, but figured just carrying it would work like swallowing a rare pill. Not bad, he thought, and tucked it away. Satisfied with his new loot, our hero floated above Liuli Island, stopped in midair, and sent out a burst of spiritual energy to announce his arrival. Right then, He Zhenghao, the guardian of Liuli Island, showed up in the sky, looking all official, and asked who the new guy was. Li Fan smiled, all friendly, bowed a little, and greeted him politely as a fellow Taoist.